a life, can't put me in a box. I redefine any definition you got. I am the tiger, I'm making steps to the top. The flames I whip it up, you just gotta hand me the rock. Take a seat, you cannot stand it. All I know, the flow harder than a scotch bunny. Don't try studying me, you cannot manage. This ain't what you want, bitch, I'm a fucking phenomenon. This ain't what you want, bitch, I'm a fucking phenomenon.
Hello, good people. I hope that you guys are ready to have this conversation right here. This one is wow. So, I have a question that I'm gonna get to by means of having this conversation today with you guys. You probably got to struggle with me a little bit because I am having some allergy issues and things like that with my contacts and my eyes or whatever. But definitely for those of you who want to be a part of this panel discussion and want to have this conversation around accountability in the male community in general, definitely step up if you want to talk about the way that Black men interact and relate as it relates to the banners that you may see come across the screen as far as like the content, the questions, and things like that. Definitely click that link, but make sure that you mute before you do it. Hey, Black Anonymous, how are you? And hello, Rainbow Rev, how you doing? How is everybody doing today? Before we get started, go ahead and hit that share button. Subscribe if you've not subscribed already. And let's go ahead and do a big share because I do want to have a collaborative conversation. Hopefully, the chat is 100% active today. Also, if you guys decide to come on the panel and share, you don't necessarily have to turn your camera on or whatever. You can turn your camera off and just do audio. It's all on you. So the link is in your chat wherever you're viewing this from. Hopefully, it's wherever you're viewing it from. But yeah, so I have a couple of people who have made it their business to be a part of this discussion today, but I am going to lead off with some general conversation with some of these topics that I already have. So, as you guys see in the subject line, you see that we talk about the fact that Black men or men in general do not respect themselves. The question was specifically brought to me in reference to holding Black men accountable, however, so that's the reason that I mentioned that just a moment ago. Hold on. I'm going to put the link in this description box as well on Facebook. But yeah, so that's amazing. That's amazing. So of course I had to go and I had to create some very general conversations. I'm gonna just kind of put up some of the things that we're gonna talk about today, so you guys can kind of briefly see what we're gonna brush through. So you see what's in store, and then of course you guys gonna see what the main thing, this is the main topic. This is the theme of the topic, but those things will lead up to it. So, welcome to Life Discussions with Dr. Jefferson. I am Dr. Jefferson. If you are viewing us for the first time on this platform, we're definitely happy to have you here. Hopefully, my producer can keep up with the comments and he can display all of them, and I can get a chance to address the super chat, the chat that's live or whatever while we're on. But more importantly, I really want you guys to feel like you have a voice, because you do have a voice, and this is a conversation where your opinions and your insights definitely matter because it's going to drive outcomes. So I want to talk about respect in general to kind of start the discussion. So my question for you guys is, what is respect to you? Um, and what I want to put out there is the fact that respect looks different, depending on who you ask about it, right? So we don't all view respect or respectable behaviors in the same way. As a result, we see a lot of people doing a lot of things that we would easily be offended, if we were in their position. And then we also see some people who are offended by way of taking notice that this thing has happened to another person. Um, as a result, the behaviors and the conversation may spiral. Things may become extremely volatile. And as a result, people don't necessarily display the best versions of themselves. So, oh, my mic, you can't hear me? Hold on, let me turn it up. Let's see. Is that better? So let me know if you guys can hear me a little bit better. Hold on. All right. What about now? Is that good for you guys? Yes, no, maybe so. I'm hoping so. Um, and if you can't hear me, let me see. If you can't hear me over the course of me having this discussion, then kind of just give me a heads up and let me know. You know what? I might just position it right in front of me. So hold on a sec. I'm gonna mute it and move it. All right. So this should be a little bit better. Is that better? Because now it's right in front of me. Uh, but so, like I was mentioning before, I think that respect is something that is very different to everybody. We all have our own ideas of what respect looks like and what respectability principles are, what things are disrespectful, what things cause or raise reason for suspicion or hostility, and the perception perceived. Um, awesome, awesome. Thank you. The perceived notion that a person is being disrespectful, all of that looks different depending on who we are. But so for me, I want to have a discussion about generally what is respectful. Respect is when we give a person acknowledgement and validity within the context of what they've conveyed to be their boundaries, right? And sometimes we have some very general boundaries. Typically, these are laws um, that are in a particular jurisdiction. Sometimes they are what we call bylaws or whatever, or policy for interactions. So if we're talking about in the workplace, these are things that are covered in your policies and procedures when it comes to behaviors and things like that amongst the people that you have to work with. So respect covers so many areas when we want to talk about why dysfunction happens amongst people. And it's responsible for that. People feel like they're not being respected. at least to the extent that they expect people to respect them. They feel like they're not being or given the rendered the proper respect if they are being respected. But the most prominent thing that stands out is that because people have a different perception of what's respectable and what's not, oftentimes people are not receptive to other mind frames or thought processes that say that whatever they hold true is, not the truth for the other person, but the other person is probably willing to render that level of respect that they're asking for. So typically when we look at respect being something that's the lines are crossed, people react in negative ways. So it leads to unhealthy arguments. Let's go here. So I want to talk about what a healthy argument looks like versus an unhealthy argument. A couple of days ago, there was a conversation had online on YouTube. And I know lots of people have been kind of talking about it because it was on Kwame Brown's show. He invited Tommy Sotomayor on there to have a conversation about accountability. I absolutely love that idea because you guys know that my channel is primarily about accountability, especially accountability amongst us. And at the end of the day, you got a lot of people who are influenced by the behaviors they see in people who are creating this content online. So over the course of this conversation, right, I think that we got a chance to see the framework for a healthy argument to take place. And I just want to clarify for a second what arguments are. Okay, arguments are an integral part to our growth and our maturation in life. Arguments are differences of opinions being presented in the same spaces. So, of course, we have healthy arguments that take place every day in the courtroom by attorneys, and some people that are pro se, going in representing themselves against a person in civil court or criminal court, whatever, right? And these people are arguing the fact or refuting the fact that whatever this thing that has been, they've been accused of is not what it is. In this particular situation, you saw Kwame Brown trying to come to some level of understanding and some level of accountability for Tommy Sotomayor in the way that he mentions his name and the way that so much hostility or perceived hostility has been introduced into the system. Money Boy Trey shared some content of a conversation of Tommy Sotomayor in an argument with Mario J or Tough Love, right? And this wasn't, I think the conversation took place maybe a couple of years ago. And I think that that's a healthy display of what it can look like when you have a platform to have a healthy argument and then things turn toxic as well. So healthy arguments do not look like you have to resort to physical violence or verbal violence, right? So violence that is physical means that you're hitting someone, physically harming a person, pushing, shoving, those types of things, cagging, kicking, pinching. Could be a lot of things. And healthy arguments look like, let's talk about some of the emotionally aggressive arguments that are not healthy first. Some of the emotional ways that we can argue or verbal ways that we can argue, and both of them kind of sometimes look different. Emotionally, we can detach ourselves from someone who very much needs us. And we know that we have a position in our life where we add the bulk of value to their presence and their being. And as a result of feeling a particular way or being, triggered, we withdraw to hurt that person. And we're very intentional about that thing most of the time. And so that's a way of emotionally abusing someone. But we also have verbal attacks. People can be very verbally aggressive where they completely demean and degrade a person or their character. And it was interesting to me that I have some people who are following this channel now who are avid followers and supporters of Kevin Samuels, avid followers and supporters of, what's the other guy? Umar Johnson. Right. Umar Johnson. And those people, when they see the content put out there or reviewed by me in these videos that I've already put out, they feel like, or so they express in their words online, that I have a ready-made opinion formed already before I even go online to do these reviews and view the content. I gotta be honest with you guys. I'm pretty quick on my feet. I'm not a person who does a whole lot of prep work and stuff like that to go online and talk to people, because I'm a public speaker. I've been doing this for years. I've spoken at conferences, provided lectures for students, and I've done a lot. Okay. So public speaking is not something that I struggle with. Sometimes English words, translation, or something like that. Possibly, but not speaking on things in general. So when I have content that I'm sharing with you guys, oftentimes I've just seen it for the first time myself, or I've seen it in its entirety for the first time while viewing that same content with you guys. And so it's more like a reaction video than anything else, right? So the reality is this, and I've had and done some pretty in-depth research on Dr. Umar Johnson or whatever he is. I've done a lot of research on that simply because I have a major segment that I'll be doing on that includes a couple of different panelists. And that's just from a clinical perspective of what's going on in the situation in adjunct to accountability. And so for me, it's really important to have the difficult conversations that we cannot have because we decide to overlook them, right? In our community. So that covers that. All right. So nothing that you guys view on here is me having a ready-made opinion about anything. If you submit a topic suggestion, I cover it. I cover it because I'm interested in the things that interest you. That's what I'm here for. I have a lot of other things that I could be doing with my time, but I'm passionate about helping my community, providing education, elevation, and insight. So for me, healthy arguments look like we hold spaces for people to convey their message where we're now trying to understand where they're going, even if we don't agree with them. Agreements are a non-factor. They're not necessary in the grand scheme of things. Understanding, however, is a conduit to respect. If we feel understood, we feel respected as human beings, not just men, but as human beings. And oftentimes, like when I first got this question from this person, and it was a woman who submitted this question. Hey, Stranger Talk, how are you? When I first looked at the content that was, requested for me to review and having this conversation or whatever, I was like, So that's a really interesting perspective to think that, men have a lack of respect for self. Let's see some of the examples that you have. I'm looking. And so the main thing that stands out, like I said, is the recent arguments. So there are ways that we as people are taught that men behave and women behave. We call these gender roles, okay? Or gender positioning in society. And the reality is, even though there are some gender roles and there are some basic conditioning elements, of men and women, sometimes people act outside of the behaviors expected for those roles. And so for me, it's really important to have a clear understanding of what that person was conditioned to be, how that person was conditioned to be based on their particular culture, subculture, race, what I mean, ethnicity, or whatever, their family of origin. So in having this conversation, I'm going to talk about some of the things that create the toxic behavior patterns in communication attempts that we see in men in general, the way that society contributes, the way that their intimate partners contribute to that, the way that the media contributes to that, in the news, as I mean, and social or internet too. So, um, so if we are to ask the question that is the most important or prevalent to understanding these behaviors that are not necessarily inviting or expected or desired, I would ask you guys, who taught you how to disagree? Okay, and how so? And also, that's my question for you guys. So I want to know from you guys watching, who taught you how to disagree and how did they teach you? And I'm going to clarify while I wait for you guys to kind of type in the comments what your answers are and your response to this question. So sometimes we learn lessons by direct exposure, and sometimes we learn lessons by indirect exposures. Either way, we still learn a lesson, right? And so the main thing I want you to think about when you're thinking about this is, even if I don't necessarily disagree in this particular way, I took this particular experience in a certain light and I expounded on it, built upon it, decided to frame the way that I argue or I approach disagreements, right? Um, Based off of seeing these things, these patterns of behaviors, because most of the time we do learn to disagree from home amongst older siblings, older family members, relatives, or whatever, and then of course parents and grandparents disagreeing. So when I think about this, I'm thinking about both the negative and the positive. If I had to answer this question like myself, I learned how to disagree in different settings. So environmental shifts became a part of my narrative growing up as a kid. You had people that took it to the playground, you know, they were, youth, people that were your peers, right? Take it outside and you got to fist fight it out because that's what it is. And then also at home, there were conversations had amongst adult people. And sometimes those conversations would get extremely volatile. For me, if I'm looking at a conversation that gets extremely volatile, what I take away from that is that that's not the type of behavior that I want to be displaying at any point in my life ever. I would rather have complete control of my situations, of myself, so that I don't find myself in those particular situations. So I start to look for more healthy means of resolving issues. And then, I guess I became a little toxic in that search. But I'm going to talk about that becoming a part of the process, because oftentimes we say men don't respect each other. And by way of not respecting one another, they don't respect themselves. But the truth of the matter is they may be going through their process. It's a process. When it comes to us adopting healthy behaviors, it takes work. It takes a lot of work. So, I've learned by both direct and indirect exposure as to how it is would be how I should disagree. Furthermore, as I became an adult, I learned that some people you can't negotiate with them when things become extremely hostile. When the heat gets too hot, you got to learn how and when to step away respectfully. Um, so what role does media play in the way we see the world we are becoming a part of? So the world that we're becoming a part of, this has to do with those direct and indirect exposure things that I talked about earlier. So now life looks a little different. Most people are learning from people who behave over the internet, the conversations they have, the shows they have, these live discussions, these panels they have. If we took Kevin Samuels for example, Hmm. It's a lot of toxicity there. Um, Umar Johnson. There's a tremendous amount of toxicity there. Tommy Sotomayor. There's a tremendous amount of toxicity there. Kwame Brown. There is a tremendous amount of toxicity there. Though there is growth, I gotta say, still a lot of toxicity. Um, yeah. I don't see a whole lot of people with really healthy means of displaying, ways that they should be disagreeing. If we look at Desperate Housewives and stuff like that, if we looked at Basketball Wives and Love and Hip Hop, all of these portrayals that are on TV that get like the absolute most views are the most toxic as far as interaction patterns and reaction styles. And so what I will say is that it plays a huge role in the conditioning of young people. Young people of all ages. So if we look at children, children are very impressionable, but so are adults when they're going through the infancy stage of these different developmental stages that they go through in adulthood. And you go through another 2 phases before in life crisis. So typically when you're going through those different phases of life, it's hard for you to keep up simply because in your search for self, and that's what those identity crisis phases are, you can become a very toxic person and you can have some very toxic personality traits. And you can look like a person who struggles with narcissistic personality disorder every day because you're so reactive. Um, so it is what it is. So the next question is, are Black people more aggressive than whites? And so from the question in and of itself, I'm going to assume that question was real, when it came across, I'm going to assume it was coming from the perspective of Americans because Black and white only exist here. So in response, I'd say there is no true way to give a reliable answer to that question. But do we see more aggression portrayed by the media, and do we see more aggression portrayed in real life by Black people more so than we see um, in the white community in America? Sure. But that's not to say that Black people are more aggressive or less aggressive than white people. So, that one's kind of up in the air. It just depends on where you are, because of course that also depends on what you're exposed to. So one person may be exposed to more white aggression and microaggression, and some people may be exposed to more Black aggression and Black microaggressions because that's the setting that they're in primarily, or that's who they're exposed to. um you said, when is constructive criticism no longer constructive? So when constructive criticism is or includes defamatory remarks and things like that, name calling, and when I say name calling, I don't mean potential labels. I mean actual name calling, right? Like we're in second or third grade where words really hurt, but we say they don't because sticks and stones are what break our bones, because emotionally we can become broken too. Um, so constructive criticism is criticism that doesn't involve an end game as well. So if a person is not offering you a solution or a viable solution or options to solve the issue that they're complaining about, and they're only coming with a complaint and that's it, there is no insight, there is no growth, no education provided, none of that stuff, it's probably not constructive. You know, you said aggressive, aka passionate. Hmm. In reference to what question? Is that the one that, are you responding to the, are Black people more aggressive than whites? Let's go back to that comment really quickly. I am gonna have to take some more allergy medicine because this eye is just like killing me. So outside looking in, that question was for you. Okay, so we'll move to the next question. Uh, what is truth resonance response, and how do we tap into control of it? So, I have written quite a few articles over the years about the way that we argue. I've talked about one-up communication techniques and types for communication patterns between people in conflict situations. And I've talked about conversations that become very volatile very fast. So, conversations that can look like hot and cold, a mood disorder. Um, so, truth resonance responses are when other people are the keepers of our truths and they are the secret keepers, right? So, they may have done some research and found these things out. Um, they may be people who have been around us, and therefore that's the way they have that knowledge, right? That intimate knowledge about us, but we don't want anybody else to find those truths out. So truth resonance responses are basically trigger responses to someone else relaying your truths before you're ready for them to be relayed to the rest of the world, or just people that are a part of your intimate world. For an example, a good example is, let's say I am a part of a family and my mother has had 7 daughters. And the 7 daughters, including myself, of all of us, only one of the daughters, not even my mother, not my father, not my grandparents, nobody knows that I've had 3 abortions, but one of the sisters. Okay. And let's say I went to the sister, let's call this sister Terry. Let's say I go to Terry and I'm like, and she's like, "Hey, what's up?" And I'm just like, every time, like, "Oh my God, I'm pregnant. We're not married yet, or we're married and we're just not stable yet. Just can't have kids right now. I just don't think that now is the right time to have a child. I'm not ready to have a child." And so, um, let's say Terry's trying to be understanding and she's trying to be there and supportive of me and everything. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. Things aren't panning out the way that I figured my life would be panning out, right? And so her suggestion is that I discern what I need to do or what I want to do. Let's say I go have an abortion, and when I come back to her, I come to her with that truth. But this same thing, this cycle of behavior becomes me, and I become it. We become one. So now Terry is the keeper of my secrets, the keeper of my truth that nobody else knows. And then one day we're in an argument, right, Black Anonymous, and that's kind of where I'm going with this, right? One day we're in an argument at dinner, and over the course of that dinner argument, she's like, "You're always jealous of me. You've always been jealous of me. You've never been there for me." And over the course of this is, my truths have been not my truths anymore for like another 10 years now. So I've grown out of that previous existence, but it's still there lingering. And she's the key holder, the gatekeeper for that truth. And so now in this argument where I'm seemingly winning the argument simply because I have a valid point, right? Now she runs out of validity. And as a result, she goes into what I call one-up mode, where I've always got to be the person to have the last word. I've got to be the person to hurt you as a result of you hurting me, right? And let's say Terry says, "Well, you know what? I became a mother and I was responsible. I did the things that life called me to do. And instead, you just went and had 3 abortions. Does Tom know about that?" Right? Tom is my husband. Let's say Tom is my husband. And I'm sitting in that space like, "Oh my God, you're a friggin' liar. And I hate you. Like, I hate you." And then now I start talking things about her, and her truths of her life that she was not ready for other people to hear either. Does anybody know that you had, sex with those three guys behind your husband's back 3 months ago, right? Whatever. So now my responses are truth resonance responses. So I'm triggered. And as a result of me being triggered, I've stepped out of character, even though I had a valid argument previously, and the argument was going partially conducive on my end. I was holding my ground, speaking with validity, giving clarity, and also giving some space for her to be valid in her own space. Now, I'm the person in the conversation that's been triggered emotionally, and as a result, I no longer hold any valid ground because I was triggered. So let's welcome the urban therapist, the official urban therapist, to the platform. How are you?
Hello, good evening. How you doing today?
Excellent, excellent. So we're talking about men not having respect for themselves, and we were answering the question about truth resonance responses. The person that submitted the topic for the day is probably more than likely a person that has read some of my LinkedIn articles or Facebook articles, because that's my term, by the way. You guys don't go out there and think that you're going to use it.
It's copyrighted.
Right, right. So what do you think about people who one up in communication attempts when they feel like they're losing ground in an argument?
Well, that's a good question. I had took up communication through my major in sociology. One of the biggest component about communication is that we have to listen to understand instead of listening to react. Normally, when a breakdown of communication occurs, that's normally be the case because we're listening to react to wherever the message is being conveyed, and it breaks down communication. Now, for us, a man perspective about that, they take that as a form of disrespect when, say, for example, I'm talking, then another man is talking over me. Well, when a man does that, I'm gonna take that as a form of disrespect because he's not listening to the understanding that I'm trying to convey to them, and therefore it creates a breakdown in communication.
Okay, so we had a conversation about the possibility that sometimes people are in conversation and they're mistaken as being disrespectful when indeed for them what they were saying was something that was respectful, but the other person feels like they're being disrespectful because they've been raised with different backgrounds on what respect looks like. And so as a result, sometimes people think that if you are a person who says that, okay, I'm going to be the bigger person, I recognize the validity in your argument, you feel like your parents, your culture taught you that this was a disrespectful thing, but I meant no disrespect intentionally. So I'm going to apologize if my actions offended you, right? Does that person take that apology, or do you expect that person that now feels disrespected to take that apology and move forward with a different energy? Or do you think that they should just keep the same energy, like, nah, I'm not fucking with you no more, we're not friends, we're not doing nothing, we're not going nowhere, this is it?
Well, it depends on the validity of the apology. Sometimes people they apologize just to pacify the situation
Yep.
instead of trying to rectify the situation. For example, let's say for example that me and you are dating and we get into a certain conflict and we begin to argue.
Mhm.
Instead of me trying to understand the message that you conveyed to me, I just say, "Oh, okay, I forgive you. I apologize for X, Y, Z. Do you
Mhm.
forgive me?"
No, that's
And
play.
when yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah, you're just trying
um,
to appease me so that I can shut up and go away, and that's actually for me more disrespectful than anything. I don't
yeah,
feel heard.
exactly.
I don't feel validated. Don't feel like I have a voice. Gonna feel like you are demeaning me in the worst way.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what happens within the breakdown of communication. Normally, when a person does that, they in their mind they could feel defeated in the argument simply because they feel like that their voice is not being heard and they just want to just come to some type of resolution, but doing it in more of a, um, I guess, sarcastic sort of way. Like, okay, whatever you say, fine, whatever.
So for you, do you think that's a person who's trying to get out of a hostile environment? Or do you take that as a person who is trying to de-escalate the conversation?
Well, well, it could be either or. It could be on the person who's trying to want to de-escalate it because at this point they are feeling that the situation haven't been rectified, so they're just trying to exit out and try to revisit again. In other situations, if the person already felt that he or she have been disrespected, then they're doing it more of a sarcastic way to add fuel to the fire per se.
So what about correcting a person? So let's say you intended to convey a particular message and your message was misreceived. And so now you want to correct that person. If you go to correct that person, do you think that you're being disrespectful if you cut them off and then correct?
Well, it also depends on the way it's been handled too. Um, like say for example, where we have children and we try to correct our children. All our children trying to do is trying to express their feelings or concern about a certain situation, and you cut through out like no, and you redirect them. It could be similar towards adult too, but the only difference is that with adults you have to be a little bit more sensitive per se. Where what you trying to redirect, because if not, then they will portray it as you treating them like a child themselves, and then it becomes even more disrespectful.
I think that people can correct without being condescending. I referenced a couple of conversations that I saw on YouTube recently. And I had a conversation with Tough Love about one of the conversations I saw that he had previously had with Tommy Sotomayor a while back. But I also referenced the conversation between Kwame Brown and Tommy Sotomayor. I think it was yesterday. Was it yesterday? Yeah. And so in referencing that content, I was like, well, you know what? What I see is, there are a lot of communication patterns that are very aggressive in general. And, people can take that as well, I don't give a fuck about what you got to say. So because you don't care about what I got to say, you know what I mean? So at the end of the day, let's just end the conversation. And I think I saw a lot of that in the conversation that the two of them were having. They were engaged in a conversation around accountability for something that Tommy Sotomayor had already said or put out in the atmosphere online or something in relation to Kwame Brown, admiring him. And you would see, even when another question was raised, that was the point of contention for Tommy Sotomayor. So what that says in trying to help people to understand how people are oftentimes mistaken and also how they're taken out of context completely, because another person has their own agenda. Sometimes we will hear what we want to hear. So we can't listen to understand. And that's one of the main reasons I tell people you have to know when and how to walk away respectfully. So
Absolutely, I agree.
yeah, with 3 keys to effective communication is the first one is that communication has to be safe. You create safety by way of identifying, safe words that both people understand. Also by way of listening to understand versus listening to respond, like you said earlier. Because if you're listening to understand a person, like I started this live off, kind of telling you guys what respect is, right? People only want to feel heard and validated in their voice. So it doesn't mean that they're invalid, right? If you don't agree with them, it means that they're invalid if you don't listen to understand them. You understand? And you're only trying to convey your message, and that's it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Conversations are meant to be circular. Even though people are like, no, it's two ways. No, it's circular. You have a person who is the speaker. That speaker has a message to convey. That message has to be conveyed to a listener. And then the
Which is the
listener has
receiver.
and then that listener has to regurgitate what they got from that message to the speaker. And then the speaker now has to confirm or correct in order that for that, just that one message to be, an effective means of communication. Because sometimes when people say something to us, we don't take what they intended to give us. Rainbow Rev says context matters. I agree. A lot.
Yeah, I agree too.
Mm-hmm. And that was one of the things that Mario J was saying, tough love. He was saying it in that video with him and Tommy Sotomayor. Because I think Money Boy Trey was on the thing, and he mentioned a conversation that they had, but not the whole conversation, just a snippet, right? Just a reference of what he took from the conversation, tough love. And so, and at one point the context was important, and then the next minute it wasn't. But context is huge, when it comes to effective, conflict communication, because we need to see where these things were said in response to, basically, what these things were said in response to.
Yeah, I also reviewed the interview with Mario J and with Total Sotomayor. I also reviewed the panel show with Moneyboy Trey, and I think it was with Mario Tommy Sotomayor and other people who was on the panel as well. One thing that I observed behind that is that the context could be very distorted when voices be elevated. Now, bear in mind, and I'm speaking also from a man's perspective too, that we have the tendency to elevate our voice. And the reason why we elevate our voice is because, first of all, we want to be heard, and we want to be the alpha of the conversation. So when we elevate our voice like that, and you have another man in the same token who does the same thing, what it will end up become more of a shop fest. And that's what caused that context to be distorted. Therefore, it causes also a breakdown in communication as well.
So do you think sometimes you can receive a completely different message from another message that was meant to be conveyed because of emotional reactivity?
Yeah, I do believe that. I do. Once when the context be distorted, it could go into several different ways. Like for example, if you be part of a religious setting, right? All of us were listening to a preacher preach, right? Over 100 people were heard that the preacher is saying, "Give me money." Another 50 people would say that the preacher is saying, "God, give me money." Then another 50 people will say the preacher is saying, "God said for the preacher to have the choir come out to give me money." But everybody is in that same environment, you know what I'm saying, in that same token stuff. They are receiving this certain message, and it's being conveyed to different levels or different avenues of context and stuff, you know what I'm saying? So what caused the context to be distorted? Let's say, for example, the same example, right? It becomes distorted if the choir all of a sudden starts singing while the preacher is preaching. And so the message becomes distorted like this because now the preacher is trying to speak louder over the choir to try to figure out what's going on with the with the message, in other words. And that's what happened. I believe that's what happened with a lot of situations where the context be distorted the way it is. But it's always a way to rectify it too.
But I think that sometimes, like in that particular situation, maybe the message was miscommunicated because it wasn't complete, right, in and of itself. So if the pastor is saying, But if I were to go back to that same message and we hear the pastor saying now as the offering plates or the collection plates go around, please do not forget that, there is a contribution that is meant to be made by you or whatever, right? Or is what's that old saying they say in churches? Somebody robs somebody. Don't rob somebody.
Don't rob Peter to pay Paul.
No. It's another one. I can't remember. I have to remember it because I've not been to a Methodist church in a long time, but I noticed that was a centralized theme for every Methodist church that I have ever gone to. Episcopalian people, I was like, oh my God. But anyway, like if he was to send a collection plate around and say to contribute. So some of us may receive that message as, oh, he thinks that I'm supposed to be contributing to God. God isn't here. God don't work with money.
Yeah.
God don't have no house, no bank account, none of that. What we doing? Giving you nothing, Pastor. So somebody may receive it that way, and another person may receive it as, oh, he's just making sure that I give what I need to make sure that my blessings continue to overpour and my cup runneth over and all those things. He said Methodists will put you to sleep.
Don't say just playing. You for real. Sure,
like, look, because it's so long-winded. You'll be in service. Church is supposed to end at 1, and it's like 4 o'clock. I'm like, wait, is this a special program or something?
Yeah, maybe starting at 7 in the morning.
But yeah, so I feel like oftentimes, sometimes we miscommunicate our messages initially, but sometimes we mistake the messages too. And so when we don't ask for clarity and other people don't go to clarify things for us when they see that we're mistaking the message, that can lead to us doing things that look like they're disrespectful as a result of us not understanding. But I feel like we have to be the people to say, hey, you know what? You told me XYZ, and I'm not sure I got you right. So here's what I heard. This is what I hear you saying. And just looking for or seeking that clarity is everything. Because sometimes in these situations, I heard Kwame Brown try and do that several times in his conversation with Thomas Sotomayor. I heard him say several times, well, you said, show me this. So you said we don't talk like so-and-so. You know what I mean? You said that this isn't the way that so based on the way you're saying things are, so that wouldn't be there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I seen that too. Kwame, he was doing a lot of redirecting with Thomas Sotomayor because by me viewing that, I knew that Kwame was really trying to do his best to try to rectify the situation and move forward.
Yep. I said the same thing. I saw a tremendous amount of growth versus some of the content that he's put out as of late, where he's been ranting about some of his experiences and exposing some of the people that he's had ties with. And I feel like that's necessary. I feel like Kwame Brown is a person whose presence on the internet is necessary right now. Now, does that sometimes look like a manic episode? Yeah. Because if you've not had this energy for all this time, and then all of a sudden it's happening now, if he were to shift and go back to his normal life of no interaction on social media, then we would definitely have to contribute that to something else. But I feel like he's just shifting gears in his life along the course of his maturation and positioning himself in a different place to be able to advocate for different things. Or so that's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah. I often say this on my platform too, that a lot of content creators, well, when they create their content and they're not professionals, it's more therapeutic for them. And the same situation with Kwame Brown. A lot of things that he expressing, some things I agree with, other things I don't agree with, but at the end of the day, it's more therapeutic for him because it's helping him cope and it's helping him to evolve into another level or another one way of thinking, and also it's helping him with certain things that he's already plugged into, like certain charities and stuff that he's plugged into to help benefit his community too. So I'm with you on that. That at the end of the day, it's needed for the season that we're in right now. Just like different other content, like um, you're needed. I'm needed. Other content, Mario J, Tommy Sotomayor, even Moneyboy content, and George Chicha, everybody else who are content creators. It's all needed for the season that we in.
Yeah, because there's
Yo,
so many people from so many different walks of life especially when we talk about the cathartic release that happens when we can express ourselves, when we finally feel heard as people. So those are necessary components. And for me, it's all about normalizing getting the help that you need when you need the help you need, but more importantly, being able to identify when you need said help. And so I feel like a lot of people struggle and they end up struggling with personality, disorder traits, or sometimes personality disorders in and of themselves, because they do not get the help that they need, and they listen to the ear of society where they're leaning for their approval, right? There are just so many different levels to this, right? And so when I do my show tomorrow, and I just can't wait to do that show, because I feel like these personality disorder conversations have to be had so that people can understand that even though they kind of look symmetrical, they're not all the same, for one. And then there is something that they can kind of go off of to build and have a better understanding of what some of these clinical terms mean, but also what some of these behaviors that they may have adopted, or people that are there connected to closely may have adopted, and as like, why did this happen? And so for me, the accountability conversations are surrounded around people getting the help that they need, but also pushing out that information and education out there so people can move in a different light.
yeah, absolutely. I agree.
So those people
Let,
find themselves here.
let me ask you a question too, Dr. J. Now with the situation with Mario J, Tony Sotomayor, then also I think with Moneyboy Trey. In that situation, do you think a mediator would help rectify that particular situation?
An actual mediator?
Well, someone to mediate. How about that? Whether it's professional, non-professional, who
I
has one
I think
biased opinion.
I think it causes for a professional to mediate, because we go through certain trainings as a mediator, and it's not the same as a clinician either. It's a completely different training for people to be able to argue their different perspectives and come to a place where personally the outcome resonates with both of them, and they can actually agree to move out of that space of hostility into a more productive space. So that's why I say, because mediators are not conflict resolution specialists, but they are a go-between. And
Yeah,
they're
exactly.
they're a go-between for people who lack the skills to be able to have a conflictuous conversation in a respectful way. So that means that while we're in the room, you're communicating with me. You absolutely will not talk to that other person, because you've demonstrated so many disrespectful components in the
Hmm.
conversations you've attempted to have with one another, that there is no productivity whatsoever. You know what I mean? So you need somebody else to kind of not even referee, but just convey the messages, confirm the messages, and then take the message over here and do the speaker listener technique over here. Like, you need a
Hmm.
go between in the room. And that's truly what mediators do, because they're typically appointed to those civil cases where people just simply cannot gain any ground alone. They can't work off of pragmatics because their emotion brain has been fully activated. And when your emotion brain or your reptilian brain is fully activated, your cognitive faculties no longer are there for the purpose, for the drive, for the event, none of that.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and yeah, and that was the reason why I brought up about the mediation part, because I honestly believe that a lot of people lack effective communication where we have been taught how to communicate based on our culture, based on our upbringing, but we never been taught proper, effective communication, and it's very evident. It's evident, like when we see certain panels like that has disagreements. It's also evident in our relationships with each other is very evident. So I believe that training for effective communication is very much needed, especially in our culture. Is needed. Well, when I took up courses to learn how to demonstrate effective communication, it literally changed my life because I didn't know nothing about that. I didn't know that I was taught wrong how to communicate to people. I didn't know that I need to listen to understand instead of trying to listen to react, which that's what I was brought up to do, to react, to try to defend myself and, in the light.
But see, to be honest with you, being defensive is not a bad thing, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely not.
we can defend our position in a very calm and suitable manner if we're actually in the conversation for the right purpose. And I think the Rev made that comment earlier, that men don't have to raise their voices in order to get their point across. And I talked earlier about who taught you how to disagree and how so, because that does have a lot to do with how you're coming up, how you're conditioned by your grandparents and your parents, right? So
Absolutely.
for me, I talked about some of the negative character traits that I saw when communication took place between people and some of the positive. But for me, when I see negative things or undesired outcomes, I look at what are the potential positive outcomes. How could this have gone a different way, or where did this go south? Because for me, it's really important to be able to engage with people and hear and see what their perspectives are, because that stuff is important to me. Everybody has something valuable to add at some point. And so Rainbow Rev says in social work, we use the tool of active listening. Right. That's active and reflective listening are pretty much the same. And it is life-changing because you do have to learn how to hold respect for other people's opinions and perspectives. And because here's the thing. When we're doing clinical work, oftentimes people always say to me, Dr. Jefferson, you fixed my life, you fixed my marriage, you fixed my family, blah, 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 you fixed my child. And my response to them is that I didn't fix anything. I'm here to be a conduit to your change, to your evolution, to your maturation through your evolution. So I'm just here to help you access the resources that you have inside of you. You are the expert in your experience. However your experience shapes out, it's 100% on you. I'm going to give you tools. I'm going to give you guidance. I'm going to hold your hand through traumatic re-experiencing so we can look at those things through a different lens at some point so that we can remove the traumatic responses, right? And you won't have any truth resonating type of response to anything because we're going to be able to become more autonomous in our journey. But I'm not the person that creates the change. I only create the platform for this transition, this transformation to take place.
Absolutely, I agree.
I'm just facilitating space. So for me, my question, well, let me answer this question because I know we haven't done that. The question was, do you have to respect your parents your whole life?
You asking me that?
This is a viewer question that was sent in for me. What are you?
Okay.
What's your response?
Do you have to respect your parents your whole life? Well, to be honest with you, it just depends on the your personal situation that you dealt with. Sometimes, as you grow up, your parents do put you in a space where you honestly do lose respect for your parents. But just because you lose respect for them, that doesn't mean that you don't love them. It is that wherever the disrespect occurred, you just don't respect that particular thing. So, no, you don't have to respect your parents your whole life. Generally speaking, you don't have to.
Well, I don't know. I think I see it like respect and regard are two separate components. So the
Yeah.
people in our life, I think respect is a personal thing, 100% reflective. It's one of those image in the mirror type of things. So the way that I deal with you is based off of the level of respect that I have for myself. In that moment,
Hmm.
when I woke up this morning, you know what I mean? Yesterday, tomorrow, whatever, you know, because sometimes your level of self-regard and self-respect is low. Um, we see it every single day when people, you know, become engulfed in self-injury, whether it's physical self-injury, emotional self-injury, intellectual self-injury. They harm themselves in all sorts of ways. Substance use, sexual promiscuity, risky sexual practices, physical fights, verbal aggression, negative
Yeah.
thoughts. I mean, there are a lot of things that we do to hurt ourselves. Cigarette butts to the skin, burning. There are a lot of things that people do to hurt themselves outside of the what we see as the centralized theme of self-injury, which is cutting. But it's a lot of things that we do. And so I say respect has to do more with you, yourself. Regard is how you see the world around you. So a person could easily, I think that your parents, when they move outside of admiration, you don't hold them in high regard anymore. And so that doesn't mean that you have to disrespect them. You can healthily distance yourself, right?
Absolutely.
Continue to love
Yeah,
them
I can
and
agree to that.
continue to respect them. But doesn't mean that you hold them in high regard. The people that you hold in high regard, you have more frequent interactions with versus the people that you hold in low regard, where you may not have any interactions whatsoever. You said, yes, I do, but if they are toxic, it is respect from a distance. Very similar to that. And I encourage people, you know, the thing is, we talk about attachment trauma, right? Attachment trauma is something that it happens in early childhood. Okay. Either at the initial phases of attachment from birth to 18 months or 2 years, or at the latter phase after that part has been solidified and then a caregiver attachment is broken or disrupted before age 11. Okay. So, and the problem is before age 11, a person isn't capable of complex emotional processing. As a result, they internalize everything. So they see themselves to be at fault for the things that happen within the context of our relationships that may surround them. So parents splitting up and divorcing before kids are 11 years old, regardless of what you say to the kid, they're always going to feel guilty on the inside, regardless. It's about how
Yeah,
you
yeah, I
display
experienced that.
the affections or unaffectionate types of emotions that you guys have between one another. It's about how you convey that message during that time of separation. If it has to happen, you have to be consistent with your love and affect, because the reality is this: if you ever truly love someone, you don't just fall out of no longer loving them. We don't do that. Human beings don't do that. Love is an energy. It's an energy form. So energy forms shift gears, right? They may evolve to a different state of being, but right, like kinetic energy and potential energy, right? But it doesn't dissipate altogether. Energy never dies. It never dies. It just changes form. So love is an energy. And if we react in a way that we are rejecting that energy, right, of love, because now we're at, you know, a discourse or impasse, and that person has hurt us. Hey, Joy, how are you? The children are now confused because they're attached to the raw and uncut, uncensored, unfiltered emotions of each of you. So they know what's really there. But your way that you react or act on those emotions or the feelings you have as a result of having those emotions are what they're going to kind of gauge how they become in their process, right? So what I tell people is that when you are divorcing, confront your truths, your real truths, the fact that you're hurt. Pain is there. It's either you feel resentment towards yourself because you feel like you failed, or you feel resentment towards your partner because you feel like they're at fault for doing XYZ, or you feel resentment for the relationship because you're smart enough and you're evolved enough and mature enough to know that the reality is neither one of you are at fault, but the relationship has repositioned itself in a different way and it's just not going the way you wanted it to go, right? Either way, if you recognize what the core of your feelings actually are and your emotions actually are, then you will have a healthier way of conveying that message to the partner that you may physically relocate from. And so as a result, your children will end up healthier as that relationship moves to a different type of relationship as it transforms, because you still have a relationship for life, because you still got to be co-parents. You see what I'm saying? These are things that are necessities. So it's about understanding, essentially, but so I feel like some people you have to be ready to step away from, and parents, after those initial attachments are already formed and you're past age 12, 11 or 12, if you need to disconnect in order for you to find peace, the attachment injury is not going to happen there. You've solidified that attachment and it's gone on to be proven to be stable. You know what you need and what you don't need. So if your parents are toxic, you can walk away without hostility in your heart for them or towards them. And so sometimes you might distance yourself. As an adult, I've had people ask me like, wait, Dr. Jefferson, it's okay for me to block my mom?
Yep.
That's what you need to do. You know what you need to do more so than I do. Like you've been arguing with your mother and being disrespectful and cursing her out every day for the last 2 weeks. And you need to ask me if that's something you need to do. Mm-hmm. Clearly, you need to get your emotions stable before you reenact with her again.
Yeah, that's the first thing. Yeah, healing occurs from you first. Then once when you heal, then you be able to project that same energy towards the person who caused that either emotional or physical pain or whatever type of pain that you originally received.
Right. So the last one is, let's discuss the conversation about Black men dating white women, but Black women continuing to hold that space for their Black men exclusively. Now, the person who submitted this question, and this is the centralized theme of our discussion today.
Yeah, who submit this one?
This is a female, and she is a clinician.
Oh, okay. She could have came on the panel.
Nope, she doesn't want to be named. That's why I didn't name her. But I feel like Black clinicians sometimes have some trauma that they have not even attempted to heal yet, and for some reason they haven't come out of the stigma themselves, right? But I don't want to be judgy because I can't judge you, and apparently you really want me to have this conversation, and so I'm going to do it. Refron says, in America, people get married with divorce on their mind. It's very sad. Okay. So I'm going to use that because that's actually, it can be more positive than it can be negative. When I have people come to me for premarital counseling, there are several different things that, as a clinician who is a relationship success expert, as a marriage family therapist, there are certain things that I have to prepare them for to enrich the quality of their marital relation over the course of time, right? So divorce is definitely a part of the discussion because we need to have a very clear and concise conversation about divorce. Some people get married with the intent to never divorce a person, right? And so then a whole separate conversation has to take place then, though. The first question is, what does divorce look like for you? What do you perceive divorce to be? Because certain people have a very different idea of what divorce is and marriage. a lot of people have a very different idea of what it means to come together in a shared space emotionally, because that's what marriage is about. It's about that emotional bond, the spiritual bond, more so than it is about the physical bond where you guys are in the same physical space. Okay. And marriage is heavy without having the important conversations. It's important you talk about finances. It's important that you talk about the ideas around financial responsibility. It's important you talk about gender roles. It's important that you talk about position roles. It's important that you talk about whether or not your future holds having kids or not. If so, how many kids, the expectations for grandkids, the expectations for what divorce looks like after in the aftermath, if those things were to occur, right? Importance of self-growth, your individual perspectives of those things. So there are a lot of things that have to be discussed, because you got some people that get married, they have absolutely no idea of the maturation level of their partner. And as a result, we end up with irreconcilable differences because they didn't do the work before they got to the marital component to know what it took. Because many people get married with the notion of love on their mind. Love is going to keep us together forever. And God, I got news for you people. That's just not true. You have to have pragmatics as well. That's a part of the situation as well. Things have to make sense. It was interesting to me that I was on one of those wind down Wednesday Zoom calls with the dating group that I facilitate. And this guy argued me up and down. Like, dude, I do this every single day. I'm a whole marriage and family therapist. I've seen hundreds of thousands of couples. Okay? And you're going to argue with me about the effect of religion on marital success. I'm the person they come to for the issues. So I've seen lots of people who have gotten married from the Islamic community to a Christian person, but because they never had the conversation, right? Or because, what's the other biggest complaint? Because my wife decided to wear a hijab and, you know, she dressed in, you know, the things that, you know, my culture accepts in Muslim community, then I thought we wouldn't have any problems. And guess what? After they got married, the wife like, what's wrong with you? I'm not doing all that. I'm not praying that many times. I'm definitely not wearing that. I'm not covering up. It's too hot out here to be doing all of that. You knew who I was when you were dating me. You understand what I'm saying? So these are things that will drive people to the gates of divorce during the first couple of months. Okay, lesson known, talking about the 3-year period when the honeymooner time is over. So
they call that unrealistic expectations, and especially if it had been communicated prior during the courtship or dating phase.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. So there is a difference between unrealistic expectations and uncommunicated expectations.
Exactly.
So if you fail to convey a message altogether, what you thought, especially if that expectation is not an expectation at all and it's a boundary. So it's really important that people get a really good gauge of understanding those components, because that's where disrespect, you know, comes from, when people feel like their boundaries have been crossed. And so if you're not conveying your boundaries, if people don't know the rules of the game before they jump into the game, what do you expect to happen? You know? So Refron says, in third world countries, marriage is about continuation of lineage and cultural maintenance. Divorce is not discussed in those countries towards marriage. Actually, it is. They do talk about it before you get married. Mainly naming in Iran and Iraq, and India, Serbia, Sweden. Because I've practiced in several different countries. So these are things that are important even for them.
Yep.
Because the ideas around divorce will shape whether or not a person marries themselves to you. because that other person may be marrying for the continuation of their lineage, right? They may be marrying for their legacy. You can't depend on a healthy and a continuous legacy if you know that this person may one day divorce you. You understand? Because that now that insecurity is in the back of your mind and everything that you do in the marriage. So when you go forth to build, you go forth from an insecure spot. And that person may be thinking like, oh, he's good. We talked about divorce. He knows I believe in divorce, but we're married, right? So I'm expecting everything that committed people do in marriages from my man. But the reality is, your man never conveyed the fact that he was very uncomfortable during that session.
Mm-hmm.
And after finding out that you believed in divorce, as a result, he decided to set himself up as secure going into the marriage with you, because he may not have believed in prenups before then. But girl, you just told me you might divorce me. I need you to sign right here on this dotted line saying that you won't take me for everything that I got, but you only take 20% of what I got. So
what you talking about? He doesn't exercise his options like Kevin Samuels says. What do you mean?
Look, Kevin Samuels is not out here to put no healthy marriages together. I don't know who said what to who or what, when, and why, but no, Kevin Samuels still hesitating on the topic of whether or not he is gay or straight or bisexual. And one of the things that was interesting to me when we talk about respect and accountability for that component, one of his followers mentioned the other day that when I came for Kevin Samuels, I was disrespectful and demeaning to him because I entertained the idea that he was gay. What's demeaning about being gay? That's interesting to me. And I think that was the question that Kevin Samuels was asking when they asked him, was he gay? When DJ Vlad said, yeah, there are rumors going around the internet that you are gay. Like, what's your response to that? Well, what's wrong with being gay? No, I'm not gay, but I want to talk about the rhetoric around people being gay. He didn't respond that way. And then he never gave a direct no. I don't know how many of you
Doctor, I got to play the devil advocate with this one. Now, if I was in Kevin Samuel's situation and he was doing that interview, it was me. I'll probably, to be honest with you, I would have made that same type of response simply because I already repeatedly told people on different shows, on different podcasts that I am not gay. How many times do I have to repeat myself? I'm not. Now I'm going to this whole other platform addressing the same exact situation again. Sometimes it does, to be honest, it just get annoying because you know what you are, but here it is people saying that you're something that you said that you're not. It's almost kind of subliminal that people is trying to make you be something that you're not unless you really are.
Yeah, no.
Which I know I'm not.
No, because the thing is, when he went on those previous platforms and answered that question, there was not a video floating around that showed an issue with him adjusting his cameras where a man showed up in his bed.
No, so we're not doing this again.
I'm just saying, accountability. I'm here for it. So when Vlad is now answering, because he referenced that as a talking point. So after a man has told you this and you're just now a week or so in the aftermath, you haven't done any interviews, since that happened. So he's asking.
I mean, we had this conversation about that too. And I agree that that was pretty suspect there.
Right. So I'm going to go ahead and give you a solid answer, but I'm also going to talk about those issues that I feel like are issues with the LGBT community, whatever it is that I feel in that moment. I'm going to have those discussions, but I'm also going to justify it with an answer. My sexuality isn't that important or whatever. I don't know. Ain't my business. But I was curious as to why it is that his followers would see that as disrespectful to him just because I'm stating the facts.
The reason why, because they see it as more of a slandering of his character, defamation of his character. That's how they're perceiving it as
Right.
such.
So defamation of character, for those of you watching, just in case you don't already know what that really means, is to defame a person without justification, vindication, or, evidence. So I want to make sure that I put that out there. When everybody was saying Kevin Samuels was gay or he has feminine characteristics and all of these things, I never commented on that because that wasn't my business. Lots of men are very much men and they have more femininity than they do masculinity. And that has a lot to do with the society that we're being raised in. So would I call him gay just because of that? He's very metrosexual in his dress. He looks very nice when he's suited up, booted up.
Mm-hmm.
It is what it is, right? So if I am addressing it, if I'm calling for accountability, that means that something out there has been presented that now makes me question the validity of your argument. And I didn't even address it after the man showed up in his bed. I wanted to wait and see what Kevin Samuels had to say about that. Okay. Because I did him even more justice. And this is a person that personally, how many times have I said on this show I do not like Kevin Samuels?
At least about 1,000.
Right. So this is a person that specifically doesn't like that guy. But I am a person that believes that people have validity in the content that they create, regardless of whether or not you like them or not, if it makes sense. Because it's about the pragmatics for me. Make it make sense. A lot of things that he talks about sometimes has a lot of validity when it comes to him holding people accountable. Some of that stuff I can resonate. Sometimes his approach is a little bit abrasive. You can definitely see the emotional responses in him in regard to women that don't adapt to his way of thinking. And I feel like he's very narcissistic in his approach overall. However, I got to give him credit when the man is right. Okay, on whatever points he's right on. So I didn't respond until he responded the way he responded in Vlad's interview.
Yeah, like I said the last time when I was on this panel, I agree with that. Like it did kind of sound a little suspect there, but
whole 5 minutes. The whole 5 minutes was sus.
Well, speaking of which, he's doing a whole week show where he allowed men on the show now, right?
Well, I thought that he was already doing a lot of shows with men, and that's another thing I mentioned about Kevin Samuels. I felt like as a result of all of this negative publicity, you guys have changed Kevin Samuels as we know him. I think that a lot of people, the public, has shifted his gears. I think that he's moving off of his previous content because he now has something to prove. And I don't know. I'm about consistency. So I'm Kevin Samuels. If you're watching this, if this gets back to you, I'm going to need you to keep the same energy you've been having because that's what gave you your money. You realize that you have a natural niche for something. Like Kevin Samuels says, if you're good at something, why not get paid for it?
Well, yeah.
I mean, I'm good at psychotherapy, Kevin Samuels, and I do lots of free sessions. Just want to put that out there.
Boy, I tell you.
But I'm just saying,
about women.
I'm just saying, that's what Kevin Samuels says. Women don't have a voice either. We don't have a voice. So that's what I'm here.
I was actually considering jumping on Kevin Samuels' show, but what made me change my mind?
Boy, y'all must show
is that I don't want to dethrone him per se because a lot of people who go on his platform, when they challenge him about certain issues that he say, the reason why he beat them is because they never challenge him about his statistics. To be honest, his statistics and stuff is screwed, and it's actually is outdated too. I know for a fact because I researched it.
Yeah. So even his body mass index and weight control index, all of these things that he mentions, and I mentioned that it was so interesting. There was interesting. I had one guy that was polled to the thing, and he was like, "Oh well, I'm African and I'm offended. Our women are not overweight." According to the statistics that Kevin Samuels has, like every African woman, even the skinny ones, are overweight because they don't, and none of them meet those weight index goals because they're outdated. They're inundated, period. So,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know,
exactly. See, his whole strategy and his whole foundation is based on this. That's what it's based on.
yeah,
So if you challenge him on that, then it shut down his whole entire argument altogether, and his theory will become more subjective than facts, as he would say. But people don't challenge him on that, so that's why I say I wasn't going to go on there because at the end of the day, I know that he's needed, and I don't want to bring down another black man with he's on
I'm with
straight by Metro.
right. I was saying the same thing. That's what I told people, and people are like, "Oh, you said that you're not a channel that tears down black men, but here you are calling Kevin Samuels gay or disrespecting Umar Johnson." And I'm like, no, I'm holding them accountable. So that's not tearing them down. Trust me, I have lots of valid receipts. If I wanted to tear down Kevin Samuels, he'd be gone in a day. In a day. Okay? A day. Not even the whole day. Give it an hour, maybe. Because the shit would go viral. But for me, I'm not here for that. I'm not here for that. I think that his personal life is his own, and that's what it is. I don't believe in going into people's personal lives and displaying that
Mhm.
information because that's not what my platform is about. You know what I'm saying? Kevin Samuels can stay over there in his lane and let me stay on in my lane on I-20. You know what I mean? He's on 85-75. Your course, sir. So
Yep.
I'll circle back around to you eventually. but my thing
Yeah.
is, just don't come for me. Just know that. I'm not her. I'm not her. I'm not her.
Yeah, because it's crazy because my my viewers on my panel whenever I talk about Kevin Samuels, they say that too. Like bro, you be honest with you, you could go on the show and man, you could eat them alive. I'm like, well, yeah, but at the end of the day, what is that going to prove? It's not going to prove nothing.
Right.
I
And I
mean, it's
feel like so many, I think with Derek Jackson being out there, and he's a person that I wanted to talk about this too. Because when you talk about men not respecting themselves, a man's actions are indicative of how much he respects not only the people around him, the world around him, but excuse me, himself. Because a man only acts out in the way that he sees himself. So when he looks in the mirror every single day, he's either a proud man that comes from a proud and stable environment who has 100% authority of himself, right? Control of himself. And as a result, he moves in that way. He helps and he's inspiring the world. He's a person that wants to make sure he takes care of his responsibility, but also do like his due diligence and make sure he helps out people, other people that needs to be pulled up to his level. These are things that mature men do, right? Who have a
mhm.
great sense of purpose and self. So men on the other side who don't have that great sense of purpose and self are very, very disrespectful. And in that moment, no, they don't respect themselves, but it doesn't mean that they're not respectable altogether. The question was raised about these black men and their interest of dating white women because I feel like so many women are hurt by what black men are saying. And I'm going to bring this fact to you guys' attention. There is no other race of people, culture of people who target the women in their subculture or community. It's just you. That's a fact. That's a fact. Whether a white man has a preference of dating black women or not, he's not going to go in and attack, emotionally or verbally attack white women. You understand? He might pursue black women. You may only see a black woman on his side and in his bed, but he's not gonna, that has nothing to do with the amount of respect he has for that from whence he came. You understand? That's only a black American man issue. Nobody else is on these public platforms doing this. Even Caribbean men. Okay? You don't have black men out here making their videos saying, oh man, you know what? If you go and you get you a woman that's a black woman, you got no black woman out here saying, if you get a black woman, you got a queen or you have something high valued, right? Only thing you hear is negative stuff about black women, regardless of what Caribbean women may do that are negative, regardless of the misogynistic nature of the culture of the Caribbean. These men will not publicly denounce their Caribbean women. So what's wrong with the black man? What level of respect do you have for yourself if you don't even respect the vagina in which you came from? That's my question.
Yeah, that's a good question. A lot of that comes from the emotional trauma that black men have dealt with certain black women in general. To be honest, a lot of reasons why the black woman is in the condition that they're in, unfortunately, is because of black men. I just have to be honest about it. Where we're not in the position that we need to be in for is being a leader, being a physical leader, being a physical provider, and also being there mentally and spiritually as well. Then we just all out of whack. The energy is going to cause for the woman to be out of place and out of whack too, and she's going to have to cope with that. And she's going to not only cope but actually evolve. And that's why you see right now that a lot of women with the alpha energy, which there ain't nothing wrong with it, but it's women who carry that alpha energy where they try to portray to be both the man and the woman because they're trying to evolve into something that's a present for them, which at the end of the day is us the men. You know, it's our fault. It's our accountability that we have to take accountability for the actions that we do. I mean, like take for example, we have this expectation that we want our young women to look a certain way, you know, in beauty and fashion. We want her to have the Coke body shape. We want her to look a certain way. But at the same token, we say this too, somehow we want her to be all natural without makeup on and, you know, this and that or whatever and stuff. But yet we treat other women who have makeup on and stuff like they better than the ones who don't do it and stuff. So we just all over the place with it. So now our women, they're feeling incomplacent. They feel like they have to compete for their beauty, for the acceptance of their beauty, because they know that men, the first thing that we look is the visualization, which is the beauty. You know, that's the first thing that we see.
The truth is men do that and women do that too. You know, both men and women have a tendency to look at the physical before they look at anything else. So what we see through our eyes is very different than what we desire overall. So we're hoping that when we see that super fine man, oh, he got this body, these arms, you know, these abs, whatever it is, right? Oh, look at his little juicy butt, right? Women do the same things that you guys do when y'all are sizing up women.
Hey, I have a question for you too, since you're breaking this up.
Hey, self love.
What up, Mario? But I have a question for you. What is it with women looking at men's shoes? What is the whole concept behind it?
Looking at men's butts or
shoes, the shoes and the shoe size. Well, what's the concept of that? Because I've been trying to figure that one out.
I don't know. I'm not a woman that's into feet at all. So I barely want to look at the feet. Like look, I'm a person, gonna be honest. I'm gonna set up a date to where I'm gonna be able to see your feet for sure, to be able to rule you out of the dating pool after we've gone along a little while. I want to be outside on the beach somewhere that your feet going to be exposed so I can make sure they're not too ugly. But I'm never going to be looking at your shoes or anything like that. For me, I want to make sure that your feet are not like super bad feet, because for me, that's a real tough situation. You know.
So you mean to tell me you'd have found this ideal suitor for you, right? And
Uh-huh.
you want to curve that dude because he got some ugly feet?
The idea
Deal
is to
breaker.
serve him before we even get to that point, to where he's the ideal suitor. I mean, I find people, my thing is, my vetting process is I try to eliminate a guy in the first date. That's the purpose. That's the purpose. The
Oh,
first date. If he makes it to a second date, that means that we have a high propensity to have great energy together. And hey, we may even end up married, right? Because essentially nobody makes it to a second date with me. I'm pretty hard on the first date, just honest. But that's what I'm saying. I try to set up situations where I'm going to see those feet. We're going to video chat first. I'm going to ask all the questions that are non-negotiables first, so I can cut you loose. You don't even have to make it to the first date and waste your time or money. But if we end up on an actual date, that means that we've already found out that we're a pretty good fit. You know, but if those feet, so you got to go.
boy, I tell you.
It can't be that bad, because it's like, you know, it's a lot of things that you can deal with.
But the feet, huh?
Those bad feet, I'm not here for that. Not at all. I can't do it.
Oh Lord, look who
It's
we got
bad.
on the panel.
That's how
Hey,
we feeling. That's how we doing it.
Hey, what's up, bro?
What's going on, y'all? How y'all doing?
we're good. We're good. So we've been talking about respect dynamics. We mentioned the conversation that you were in, a couple of conversations that Tommy Sotomayor was in with other people. What's his name? Kwame Brown.
Kwame.
Yeah.
I do it all the time. Don't worry
Yeah,
about it.
him and a couple of other people too. So we talked about respect dynamics, how respect can mean something completely different from, you know, for some people versus what it means for the primary person in a conversation with multiple people. For example, Tommy Sotomayor. There are several consistencies across the board that he typically displays when he's having conversations with people that disagree with him. And they look different than Kevin Samuels. So I want to say Kevin Samuels too, but Kevin Samuels has some very key responses to people not agreeing with him as well that are easily ineffective in a conversation and where you're trying to understand somebody. But we talked about, you know, these questions. We reviewed these. Let's see, where is that one I'm looking for?
Are these your questions or are these your subscribers?
These were questions that were submitted by people that listen to my show on Anchor and people who watch the show on YouTube. And so I decided to make the conversation exclusively about respect, because the girl that submitted this one, she said in her subject, right, she is a fellow clinician, and I said I'm not going to mention her name, so I'm not. But her subject said men have no respect for themselves. So why do they want us to respect them? And that was her question.
I think that's kind of harsh. I'm gonna be real with you. I think that the disrespect between men and women, especially in the Black community, is equal. And the reason why I say it's equal is because not a lot of Black men and women have role models, and they tailor themselves after anything that's, you know, fashionable or trending. So therefore, dressing inappropriate or dressing less is sexy, you know. And then of course, objectifying those women that dress like that is the norm. So it's just like when you say, you know, men don't respect themselves or men don't know this and men don't know that. I think that the issue is that because the parents are not teaching these young men and women that are growing up from childhood to respect themselves or how to respect themselves. So that's why we have so many people running around right now that think that love and hip hop relationships are the norm, and really they're not functional relationships. They're toxic relationships that are trending because we consider everything toxic to be entertaining.
Hey, that's the add on to that to Mario. There are social norms as well where the parents is actually teaching their children to portray that particular type of behavior that you're talking about too. It does become they straight norm. That's normacy for them. So if they allow their child to go on and watch, the shows like Love and Hip Hop, and hey, this is what it is, and they allow their child to dress a certain way, then that just they norm about it.
So how do you feel about, so just because a person displays negative, characteristics of communication and effective conflict communication, right? So just because that's what they're showing, hey Trey, what's going on? Just because that's what they're showing their kids, it doesn't mean that's what their kids take away from those displays, because I talk about that all the time. Some people can grow up in the hardest and harshest environments, and they can have an outcome that is more positive than anybody that you would have ever imagined. Because I know other doctors who came and they were raised in Harlem and it was hard, and they talk about when their families were in the ghettos in Brooklyn. They talk about different experiences over the course of their lifespan shaping who they decided to be, right? All those negative experiences, though, from a single mother family where the mom was very toxic, and they decided to become the person that they didn't see in modeling behavior of parents. And so people do that. But it has to do with internal. Remember I told you respect starts with yourself? Literally it does. So not everything that we see in and of itself shapes who we become in our journey of becoming. Sometimes we see things and we say, you know what, that's a great display of what I'm not going to do.
You know what? I totally agree with you. I feel like everyone has different challenges, and depending on how far they want to take those challenges in reference to the experience. Like some people experience mothers that strung out on drugs, fathers that's womanizers, abusers, et cetera, et cetera. Like everyone grows up in different environments, and like you said, people take those situations and life learn lessons to be like, you know what, I really don't want to be like that. I want to be different. But here's the thing: everybody don't escape the trap. Everybody don't get a chance to say, you know what, I'm going to leave this area. Some people get caught up in saying, okay, I want to leave. I'm studying and yada, yada, yada. But now I'm pregnant. So now I'm stuck. I want to leave, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But now, I got caught up with a friend who was in a stolen car or who had drugs on them. So my thought process with this is that if you are a person with a platform and you know that these situations exist, it's up to you to encourage and to also provide awareness for those people that say, I want to escape this situation, but how do I do that? And I think that's why it's very important that your platform and other platforms exist that not expose, but explain. We understand you're in a bad situation. However, you know what I'm saying? If you keep your head down, you stay focused, you can get out of that shit.
Yeah, yeah. And then also, I don't say keep your head down. My thing is to keep your head up. Stay alert, stay alive. That's something that we always taught our soldiers in the military. And as a retired officer, I'm all about forest preservation. So it's about preserving the components of yourself that you need to stay viable in order for you to live and fight another day. Take another lesson out of the situation. So you need to be aware of your surroundings at all time. Yeah, like Jerry says, never let anyone or anything to define who you are, your future. So the circumstances, and people talk about people being a victim of their circumstances all the time. Just because your circumstances were a certain way doesn't mean that your outcomes have to look that same way, or reactory to that same thing. Because I talked about truth resonance responses, and that's what we see when we see the content that Kevin Samuels creates. He's upset that he's had these negative interactions or his relationships that led to him being divorced, right? So he's taken the centralized theme of those divorces coming about, and what's something that he pushes real big? Finances. If you guys listen to the interview where he talked about women not valuing the fact that men built the very world that they function in, one of his biggest things is that women don't come to the table with adding value, basically. They just do or are seated in the positions that men created for them. And they should be thankful.
You know what? I think, okay, so here's the thing. I think that narrative and I don't want to do any too much vulgar language on your show, right? That narrative only works on women who do not know their worth, women who do not bring nothing to the table. Like, when you know for a fact that you are educated, you have credit, you are successful in your own right, whether you work for someone else in a Fortune 500 company, it can even be a mom and pop store, right? The fact of the matter is, you know your worth. You don't pride yourself on listening or dealing with people who are beneath you. And when I say beneath you, they don't vibe and function on your everyday occurrences. Like, the things that you do, they're not interested in. The places you go, they won't be there. The conversations you have, they don't have. So I say that to say this: Kevin Samuels is good. He is great. He is magnificent. He's awesome for the people who need that type of conversation. But for the people that know their worth, they're not going to live and hang off of everything he says, because they realize this is a man who is not perfect, who has been through X, Y, and Z, who is probably, I don't know what his sexuality is, but the fact of the matter is, I'll listen to your message and I'll take what I can take from it. And that's what people need to understand. Listen to the message, and if it resonates with you, cool. But if it doesn't, keep it moving. The fact is, people that are damaged by this message know that they're the type of people that would not get chosen if you start assessing the situation. And I'll make this quick and brief. Assessing the situation is, you don't pride yourself on doing anything positive. You don't have anything positive going on in your life. You've never had really a positive relationship because you self-sabotage. You've never healed. You're not educated. You're not doing anything of value. So when I think of high value, I really don't think of what Kevin Samuels means high value. I think of certain things that I hold dear and near to my heart, that I would say I hold you credible. And if you discredit yourself, then I'm not going to hold you credible. I think instead of focusing on Kevin Samuels, we need to focus on the message. And the message is, are you holding yourself accountable and carrying yourself accordingly?
I feel like that's definitely a necessary component to understanding the way that these conversations end in hostility, though, with Kevin Samuels, because the reality is this. I feel like with Kevin Samuels, there is a lot of deep-seated pain there, and as a result, he's not effective in delivering any messages. Does he have validity in some of the content that he talks about that causes discord in some marriages? Of course. But I feel like those people, the women that call into his show and the men that call into his show, those are some of the people that I consider to be the elitists or privileged. Millennials and Gen Zs and things like that. I feel like these are those people who didn't make it to where they wanted to make it in life, and they're looking for that external approval component from somebody to say that
validity.
Yeah. So that means they have a poor sense of self. Is that a bad thing? No, because everybody at some stage in their life, because we go through identity crisis 3 times over a lifespan. So everybody at some point is going to need some level of external validity. However, when that external validity that you're looking at outweighs your own assessment, your own true assessment of your life, that's when things become problematic, when people are forcing you to remove what you've already deemed to be acceptable for you. So it's easy. We could always say, hey, I feel like I need work. I'm not a perfect 10 yet, but I'm definitely a hot 7, like, and then these women come on there and it's like, well, you know what? More like a 3. Like that girl that came on there, there was an African guy that left that comment. I was telling the official urban therapist about, he was like, I feel disrespected. Our African women are not overweight according to anybody. I said, Kevin Samuels told this girl at 5'11", 160 pounds, that she was overweight. Not looking at her or anything. Just asked her those questions. That's it. 5'11", 160. Okay. I've delivered a child and was 125 prior to being pregnant, 190 during that pregnancy because it was twins that time. But after giving birth to the child, super flat belly, I naturally have a lot of booty and a lot of hips and things like that. And I'm not top heavy, but I was 160 and I'm 5'4". I got pictures of what
nobody don't care about your booty and hips.
And I still look very sick. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, and not only that, I was definitely meeting my weight tape measurements and things like that because I was still active in the military. I was an officer. So at the end of the day, I don't know. No, at 5'11", 106, I even saw the pictures of the girl. Of course she wasn't overweight. Was she top heavy, have a lot of boobs? Sure. It happens, but she was basically skin and bones.
All I gotta say to what you just said about being in the military is I can say, back in the day when I was young, I'm not a kid anymore.
I can't with you. But I feel like people have to be realistic when they're listening to that negativity that he spews, because that young lady was told that she was like a 4. She was a 4 because she had a kid and her child's father was.
I feel like DJ, I feel like she deserves every ounce of what Kevin Samuels is giving. If you raised a child that will listen to someone to the extent where they will make you feel so bad because your self-esteem is so low, bro, let me tell you something. Of course, there's a lot of people that don't have the mother, the father, the uncle, the tough love. They don't have that older figure or a common sense figure or someone that really wants to see you thrive around them. I get it. If you've been in the military, you played any sports, it's always someone that's available to say, we're going to give you this leadership. And everybody doesn't have that leadership. Everybody don't prescribe to that leadership. Everybody can't follow leadership. But here's the issue. If you let Kevin Samuels damage who you are as a person, damage your self-esteem, keyword self, if you let him damage your self-esteem, then you deserve everything you're getting from that situation until you build your self-esteem, until you find your worth. And if that takes a culture shock, a wake-up shock for you, be like, oh, he said I'm not high value. Okay, well, are you assessing yourself to the point where that you have certain things in place to make sure that you're good? So if that's what it takes, the type of conversation, the type of narrative or rhetoric that he uses to wake you up, I'm all for it. But I'm not going to sit around and let him dictate what happens in my life, because I know my worth and I understand my value. So for those that don't, they may need the Kevin Samuels. They may need the urban therapist, the doclqj's, the tough love. They may need someone to wake them up. And if that's what it takes, then hell, I'm all for it.
But I don't know. I disagree with what you said by saying if they call into his show, they deserve it, because I feel like some people don't know what they're setting themselves up for. So you got some people who are watching his show for the very first time, and as a result, they're typing, "Hey, I want to get in. I like this part of what you were saying," because they're listening to this person for the very first time. And I'm gonna just be very honest. I think I was frank earlier in talking about the fact that Kevin Samuels is one of the textbook narcissistic personality people that I have ever seen on the internet. Like, highest rated. The thing about people who have the diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder is that they will love bomb you first. So the thing is, they will appear to be this person that attracts you in. But then once you're in there, that's when the gaslighting starts. That's when the negative energy starts. That's when the emotional abuse starts. You understand what I'm saying? And it starts the cycle. You have that honeymooning and apologizing part, because they're not apologizing because they identify with you or they have genuine affect. They're doing it so that they can control you and keep you, on this whole pendulum, going back and forth with the same thing, bouncing you back around. So it's about control for them. It's about grandeur to cover up their shortcomings in life. And that's what he does, literally. Like, there are no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's no getting around it. That's just him. And I think that the people that find themselves love bombed, the people that found themselves drawn to one part of his message that resonated with them, what happens is they drown out all the rest of it, right? They drown out all of his negativity that he puts out there. And I see the same thing with Umar subscribers. They drown out all of the unproductive things that they say or do, and they give them a pass on the things that are detrimental that they do, as a result of trying to hold on to that one piece of self, high sense of self, secure sense of self that they found in listening to whatever content that resonated with them. And as a result, they can't go against anything that person says, because if they do, they'll feel guilty because he'll reel them back in with his ability to make numbers make sense. As he says himself.
That's interesting that you said. You know what? I'm going to reserve my comment. I'm gonna let Urban Therapist say something real quick, because I don't want to say too much. Go ahead, King.
I think he's over there fiddling with his phone.
I think he's over there playing bingo.
With his
but based on what you're saying, I totally get it. My thought process is that you won't reach everyone being polite. You won't reach everyone talking one way. And sometimes people need that shock factor. They need someone to hate but love to hear what they're saying. And that's the Umars, that's the Kevin Samuels. I mean, it's a lot of men and women out there that it's like, even though people that are more grounded would say, these people are fucking idiots. But at the end of the day, it's like, sometimes you need to be a savage in order to reach savages. Sometimes you need to be outspoken and blunt in order to shell shock certain people. And I believe that that's what's happening right now. Kevin Samuels is no one that I would say, let me model my life behind Kevin Samuels. No.
Right.
But there are people out there that need the Kevin Samuels and the Umars. They need those type of people. They need someone to shell shock them into reality. Because some people out there, they want acceptance. They want to be a part of something. And they definitely want to feel like they would be chosen. And a lot of these men, regardless of what people say, men and women that have platforms, these women and men find them very attractive or appealing or at least tolerable to the fact that their opinion matters. And when their opinion matters, they want to know that they would get chosen. And if someone feels like they would not get chosen, they're going to do anything and everything to feel like they are a part of or will get chosen. And that's why I feel with a lot of these women that call into Kevin Samuel's show, would you choose me? And the fact that he keeps denying them, you know what I'm saying, makes them want him even more. And that makes men want to rally for him even more, because those men probably are low value in real life, but they're championing the man that is getting all the attention. So I mean, this conversation goes real deep, and I'm pretty sure you can analyze it and break it down even deeper, you know what I'm saying, with your background. But I'm just saying, I just see this with a different perspective. If King and Urban Therapist don't get back on here right now,
I'm back. I'm back.
Okay, thank God.
I'm back.
God. Bless your heart.
Yeah. So I also agree from the perspective that Mario's coming from as well. As I was hearing him talk, how the way it translates for me is that it's a necessary evil. In other words, it's some things that are in this world is necessary. We may look at it as being evil or bad, but it could serve a necessary good as well, depending on the person, depending on the perspective of the person as well. There are things like all three of us, we all admitted on this panel that we're not that type of Kevin Samuel type of person where we want to degrade people or anything like that. It's just not in us to do that unless the situation presents itself for us to do that. We're on a whole different level than Kevin Samuels, just like Kevin Samuels on a whole different level with us as well. One other thing too, Dr. J, that I did want to rebuttal you as well before I had to get off and take my phone call, but I did want to rebuttal you earlier about when you was what would you say? You saying that people didn't know what they was getting into until they get onto Kevin Samuels' show.
Some.
The reason why,
as you recall, a couple of shows ago, I hold the females that are regular callers and repeat callers and people that say I've watched your show for a while. I definitely hold those women accountable for doing their own self-damage. But the ones who call and they're first-time callers and he's extremely, foul and disrespectful and in an unpragmatic way. So where it doesn't make sense, like I said, I keep going back to that one girl because it really resonated in such a way after I had some experiences with people that had been watching him and then become suicidal as a result. So when I went back, the first thing that I saw was that one he did with the girl that was 5'11" with the one kid and the dad died in combat. That's the one I was talking about. So you tell this woman, because she's a single parent to that 7-year-old kid, 7 years old, and she's 29 years old and she's a single mother now, regardless of whether she married. You're not married no more. You're a single mom now. And you're 5'11", 160 pounds. Who's going to want to come into that? She's like, but I told you, like, his dad died. He was in the military. But what man is going to want to come in and clean up another man's mess? What mess is it? You know what I'm saying? Like, so those components right there, I'm not with that, because one, it's too many men out here that are willing to step up to the plate with the mom with the kid. And the fact that this girl hasn't gone out here and had all extra kids and all that extra stuff, the fact that she's had no more kids and she's not had any kids out of wedlock whatsoever, based on his theories, right, of a woman being judged on her past dating experience, she's a high value woman.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that you clarified that, because I was going to say that the reason why I was going to rebuttal that is because everybody has social media. They didn't see some type of clip or snippet of Kevin Samuels' show, so they know what they're getting into when they call in. They know. Even if they see less than a 5-second clip of his show, they know what they're getting into. Because
I can't say that though, because when people were sending me loads and tons of videos to review Kevin Samuels, I never saw anything Kevin Samuels. I never saw any. I never knew who he was until months ago. He wasn't on my radar, not at all. Like, I haven't watched any of his shows.
Yeah, I didn't hear anything about Kevin Samuels until I averaged at Best Thing. So
me too.
It was
even when I did that average his best video, I knew right off the back on what to expect with Kevin Samuels, and that's the point that I'm making is that If all of us seen that video, his callers know what they're getting into just by that little section right there. That's the only point that I'm making.
Yeah, and that's the crazy thing. I still haven't seen that. I still haven't seen that video. I heard about it.
I did a perspective video on it and everything.
You tripping right now.
I'm telling you.
He's tripping right now.
Look, I'm a dinosaur. I don't watch that kind of stuff.
But no, listen. But see, I listen. So when I got the video, I knew it was a clip. So I wanted to see the whole thing before I gave my perspective, and I did give my perspective. But I really feel like here's my thought process. You know what I'm saying? Women and men. Okay, I can only say this as thoroughly I'm gonna say it. Women and men know that they are either valuable looks-wise or not. And I really feel like the woman that went on Kevin Samuel's show, she did not feel confident about herself, regardless of who she talked to, whether it was in a circus, goddamn Walmart, it didn't matter where she talked to whoever. She didn't feel confident about herself. And what was so crazy about it is she wanted Kevin Samuels to say, "Oh, girl, you're so beautiful. You're so," and then here's the thing. When you don't do that, now you become the culprit. Women like her, okay? This doesn't represent the woman that's on the platform, that's the host of this show, or confident women at all. Women like her feel a certain type of way when men do not applaud or big up or promote women like her. I'm not going to promote or big up a woman. First of all, if you're not in my immediate family, I don't have an immediate connection to you, then I'm not going to just give you random applause. The fact of the matter is she expected random applause. She expected her to be above average. And the fact of the matter is she was not above average. And her confidence showed that. So here's the thing. When a man is talking to a woman, he should not be playing with his phone and vice versa. When there's a serious conversation, there's no time for jokes. There's no time for looking away. It is time to look eye to eye and have the conversation. She was not confident in herself. So with that being said, I don't care if you were a trash man or whatever the case may be, they would not find her confident. They would not find her attractive enough to be like, yeah, that's somebody I really want to build with. You see what I'm saying? But a lot of women who felt like her, those are the women that's attacking Kevin Samuels. Those are the women that are worrying about his sexuality. Those are the women that are confident within themselves, the women that go to the gym, the women that work out, the women that are healthy in their relationships, have a healthy mindset. They don't care about Kevin Samuels. Hell, they love to see him come online and obliterate anybody else. I'm just being real. The people that are confident in their self do not get their big ups from someone else. They have self-esteem that matters, and they have a support system that helps them grow. She didn't have a support system, and that was clear in that video.
So I do agree that whatever woman it is that called in there with those sentiments, she may not have had a support system. But I disagree when you say, like, you know, all women who have a secure sense of self, you know, naturally don't worry about other things. So for me, I'm worried about other things. I'm worried about whether or not Kevin Samuels is a straight or a gay man, because I want to make sense of the content and how he creates and comes up with these algorithms. And to be honest with you, prior to any of this coming out, that was one of the main sentiments, and not necessarily that he's gay, but he doesn't have a high degree of affect for women. He hates women because he's had negative experiences, some level of trauma in his relationship with women. And the thing is, next thing you know, that came out, he had been divorced 2 times from 2 different women that have now remarried. He has no relationship with the daughter that's in college. She doesn't want anything to do with him.
DJ, let me ask you something. Let me tell you something.
Yeah.
It is very difficult for men and women to get along when they do not know how to get along. And I think everyone on the panel, everybody in the chat room that's listening right now, sometimes when you are going through some shit especially when it's involving kids, depending on the whoever the custodial parent is, they can manipulate that child and make you feel like the other parent don't care. So when someone says, especially as me as a father, knowing how people can do you, right?
Mm-hmm.
People can deter your children from you.
Yeah,
Okay, so
alienation is a thing.
and this is what, and I know you smart enough, so I'm not even going to bore you with the details. But the fact of the matter is, I don't listen to women who promote a man not knowing his kids, because what I want to know first of all is the details. So when you say, oh well, Kevin Samuels don't have a relationship with his daughter in college, what what happened? Let me know the details. You can't just make a statement and not tell me the details, because that's important to me. You see what I'm saying? So I don't know what his sexuality is, but
So his daughter
like,
being independent and in college. So what happens is when kids are parentally alienated, there is a very repetitive cycle that happens in those kids. When moms are the custodial parent and they poison kids against their fathers, what happens is as soon as those kids get an opportunity to get grown and go and search out that person for themselves, they do so. That's something that we've looked at, and that's behind the science of courts having to mandate some level of visitation as a part of divorce, right? Because we realize that this is something that happens. That's why parental alienation is outlawed in every state across the 50 states. So that's why that's a thing, because we found out that not only these people go out and search out for the other parent that they've been alienated from one way or the other, but also it frays their understandings and their perspectives of the person that raised them over the course of them going through their second phase of identity crisis as children. When they're in their teens between 14 and 17, this time they become real resentful towards the primary custodian as well. So in that resentment, they may fight them physically, run away a lot, use drugs and substances to numb from the pain from the parental alienation. They don't know what's happening, but that's what's happening internally for them. So these are things that we have seen very consistent across the board. However, in Kevin Samuels' daughter's case, that's not what you see. She's a star student, went to college on a scholarship, partial scholarship, and decided on her own to not have a relationship with this dude and his negativity.
let me ask you something.
So
Let me ask you something.
yeah.
This is not even to combat what you just said. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because I got a high level of respect for everybody on the panel. The my thought process is that, has Kevin Samuels talked about the situation with his daughter directly?
He's deferred every single conversation that he's mentioned her. He deferred any further conversations around it.
Okay.
Every conversation.
I was about to say that, me personally, I am not an advocate follower of Kevin Samuels. However, I'm aware of Kevin Samuels, but I've never been sent a link, because normally I get links about stuff, but I've never been
on
sent
his
a link.
Vlad interview, because I feel like Vlad has the most.
I didn't even watch that. I didn't even watch his Vlad interview, but you know what? I will. But I'm just curious about, has he addressed the situation with his daughter, his divorces or whatever case may be, and why he feels the need to be able to speak on relationships if he hasn't not had a successful relationship? I'm curious about that.
Yeah, Mario, he briefly addressed it when he went on Tasha K's show.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And Tasha K covered her contact, her reaching out to his daughter even before he came on the show. So that's why she asked the question to him then, because when she's the one that came to the table with the fact that he had been married twice and his divorce records and his relationship with his daughter, because she reached out, and it's a lot of stuff that has not been aired. And that's why I'm saying, like, you have to have, for me, it's about respect for the fact of privacy. and family relationships. And I understand that, oh, hey, Casey and my Myth Pat, I understand that sometimes people have very, very difficult and a strained relationship and strained relationships sometimes with their parents and with their children. That's a part of some people's growth processes. However, when a man doesn't have a healthy relationship with his daughter, and a daughter can say at any point in her life that she has disconnected, separated herself from her father, and mom has gone on to marry again, okay? Successful long-term marriages, you know, in both of these situations, and you see a dude like Kevin Samuels doing the show that he's doing, I don't know why his followers haven't asked those questions. And I have seen a couple of people that went on the show and asked the question, well, are you married, Kevin? Well, are you married? And he deflects every time. But I think it's really about this. It's about the fact that he takes his insecurities that led to the discord in his marriage, that led to his divorces, and he forces those and make those numbers make sense. He said as much himself. If you listen to that Vlad interview, he said he's a person about numbers because he was in sales and marketing, and he can make any numbers or statistics make enough sense for a conversation. He said this. And this is what he built his platform off of. So whether you're inaccurately reporting or skewing these statistics to get followers, or to get these men that are trauma bonding with you because they've had negative experiences with women, and they're all in I hate women feel, or Black women feel, that's your business, sir. But just don't cause trauma onto people. Allow it to be your perception. So don't force these things on these women. So that means that if I'm asking a question, how do you value yourself? How do you rate yourself? How much you weigh? What's your dress size?
Yeah,
Right?
the only issue I have with Kevin Samuels is when he make his conversation absolute facts when it's
Right.
not. It's very subjective.
Exactly.
All of us have our own different perspective about how we view things, and that's fine. It's okay to be that way. But
Right.
when you tell people on your panel that this is facts, I got the data to prove this, even though his data is outdated, very outdated,
Inaccurate.
but what
Not a fair
inaccurate
assessment of
as well.
the represented sample
So
that he wants to say that he's giving stats on.
yeah, absolutely. And that's the one issue I have with that, because it's not facts. It's not absolute fact. It may be his truth, but it's not facts.
Right. So I feel like he should have definitely completed his education instead of choosing not to, because he needs to definitely have some research methods in sociology classes. He definitely needs to understand sociology and psychology of human beings and their interaction patterns and things that shape responses. He also needs to have a statistics class to understand the reliability coefficients and things like that. So
y'all about to be mad at me.
Those are my issues.
You two about to be mad at me. Listen, I love you too. I love y'all, but listen, y'all about to be mad at me.
Go ahead.
I really feel like our grandparents did not have any degrees. They did not have any sociology. They didn't have, any psychology. They didn't have none of that, but they gave common sense.
But they did. Yeah, I was just about to say they had education. So although formal education may not be a thing, right? A lot of people are self-educated. A lot of people further their education.
Definitely. And what I'm saying is that I feel like I don't feel like Kevin Samuels. I don't feel like a lot of people say anything that is so like like so astronomical. Some things are just simple common sense. Where the way they present it or the way they package it may seem like, oh wow, this is really complex, and I'm glad they broke it down. But the fact of the matter is, if you really listen to it, it's really simple. And I really feel like Kevin Samuels has been elevated to a level which is mainstream that allows his message to resonate with certain people. Again,
yeah, absolutely.
When women, Dr. J, here's my thing. If a man walks up to you in a suit and tie, smelling good, his hygiene's up to par, haircut, all that great stuff, right? And he says, you know what? I would love to either sell you a product or give you a service or take you out on a date, et cetera, depending on your position in life, depending on if you have a mate, a significant other, depending on if you have the time. It's, of course, it's a lot of things, but the fact of the matter is, if he presents himself accordingly, here's the issue. The issue is that Kevin Samuels is the epitome of what present yourself accordingly looks like.
Right.
He's the epitome of it. So therefore, he's accepted. And when women say, I want a man who smells good, I want a man who looks good, I want a man who can articulate, all that great stuff, right? If he does not choose you, then the first thing a woman does, because a lot of women and a lot of men do not have anyone around them to provide them that support system and to encourage them and tell them, you are great how you are, but it's always great to improve. For those people that don't have that, Kevin Samuels is the epitome, because someone has validated Kevin Samuels. More than one person has said what his opinion is what matters. And when you start believing that, then you live for that. That woman that called in and said, I make 6 figures, the average at best woman. She said, I make 6 figures. I own my own business. I have a child. I'm not married, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm rating myself as a 6, whatever. She wanted to be validated by another man instead of knowing her worth. Instead of understanding that I have a support system that's going to help me reach where I need to reach. She wanted Kevin Samuels to push her or to help her get to where she wanted to go. That is the issue. And as long as that issue remains relevant, that is the problem that we're going to have between men and women. Like, I want someone to validate me versus validating myself. Y'all talk to me. What y'all think?
So the first thing is this. I didn't know what that conversation, because I haven't seen the video, but I'm glad that you gave me the context. The thing is, the things that you just named have nothing to do whatsoever with the validity or the value of her value in the relationship. And so you can't, what kind of rating can you give based off of those things? A woman's value to any man that's looking to stay married to her long term for the right reasons and his positioning in the relationship, these are things that are obsolete to him. Men who are looking for longevity in a relationship want to know, can you respect me? Can you submit to me? Can you do things to help me add value to myself? Can you be my peace? Can you be my confidant? Can I trust you? You understand what I'm saying? Can you be loyal to me? Because these are the things that marriages end for. Even though women these days think that it matters a tremendous amount that they have a certain level of education or they make a certain amount of money. And I see that every day when I see this power struggle in a relationship, and I see these men sometimes struggling with them too, where these women start to devalue men just because they make their own money. Making your own money, being a business owner, those things don't have anything to do with you stepping into and having a healthy relationship all the way around with your intimate partner. You got to have time, attenuation, affect, support, encouragement. Can you cook? You understand what I'm saying? Can you help me clean up? Can you balance out what our duties are in a relationship? Can you cultivate this relationship with me? Can we communicate on a high level? Can we relate on a spiritual level with one another? Are we having the right type of energy amongst ourselves? Like, these are things that add value to you. So all those other things, to be honest, they're not that's not how you set yourself up for success in relationships. Money is important only to a certain extent, and I say that for a reason. Here's the thing: the reality is, if you build your money off of the idea that, okay, I make 6 figures, what's going to happen when you lose everything you have but you're still married? What's going to happen? What's going to happen when the pandemic comes in and it like this one, but you built your relationship off of Kevin Samuel standards. And you said, okay, well, I'm a 6-figure man and I'm a high earner and blah, blah, blah. And I work for this company or da, 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 da. And the moment you get ready to get up and go to work on March 17th, 2020, you find out, you know what, they're closing the office. And then April 20th, you find out, oh, they're cutting salary for the people that are working from home. Now we'll go from making $200,000 to making only $50,000. I may as well find somewhere else to work. And then the next month they say, you know what, we're just going to give you guys a severance package and we're going to lay you off, but you already quit your job. So you don't qualify for that severance package now. Now your ass is broke in the middle of a pandemic, can't provide for your family or yourself. Where's your value now, sir? Where's your money now? As your savings are winding down, as your reserves are winding down, the stock market has crashed. So everything you invested is no longer there. You've lost all your money there in the areas where you invested your stock. So what is your value now? So when I say that Kevin Samuels is unrealistic, I mean he's unrealistic, because these are not things that help people get over rough patches in relationships. They just aren't. Just aren't. And then they're only out for over a year now.
Yeah, the only thing that was available was essential workers, and that was the fast food sectors.
Is he going to go get a job in the damn fast food restaurant, though? Is he? And is he going to see that he has value still? Because based on Kevin Samuel's standard, he was a man making those 6 figures for a consistent 3 to 5 years or whatever it is. And that was his value in the relationship. That's what allowed him to exercise his options. And in his mind, he still got the damn right to exercise his options. But now that you closed up, coronavirus up with your wife for almost 3-4 months, and now the savings are dwindling down, your side piece is wondering, where is my cut? And your wife now finds out about your side piece because she's in distress because you're not giving her the money you used to give her, nor the loving you used to give her. Come on now, come with it. Help me out. Come on. Y'all tell me. Y'all are men.
So you trying to turn up. You hold on, wait. Urban therapist, don't say nothing. She's trying to turn up right now. She is trying to turn. She got the light on her, the fixtures on her skin. She's feeling herself right now. She's trying to turn up right now. She is trying to turn
reality. Up. Yeah, she is. The melanin is popping right about now.
The melanin is popping, and she's feeling herself right. Ladies and gentlemen, hit the like button. Hit the like button. Share this shit because I'm about to go in. First of all, here's the thing.
Go ahead, y'all share this content. Let's hear Tough Love on his observations.
Let's see this. First of all, I appreciate the conversation. I think it's very warranted. It's very needed. Kevin Samuels is not a factor in my life because, again, I feel like the people in my life, they know their worth. They're actually, it's not even about chasing a bag. You know what I'm saying? They're confident. They're getting paid what is owed. You dig what I'm saying? So, Kevin Samuels is it's a thing. You know, it's just almost like a hobby. Okay, well, hey, I ain't got nothing to do. Let me watch a Kevin Samuels video. But for those people who live on and validate themselves by what another person says, let me address you real quick. It is great to have someone that has said, that promotes themselves as having life experience. A lot of people don't have credentials, they have life experience. If you've been in failed relationships, you probably can tell a lot of people what not to do. If you've been in maybe 1 or 2 successful relationships, maybe you could tell people what to do. But the fact of the matter is, I feel like a lot of people validate themselves through things that's validatable. I don't even know if that's a word, but the fact of the matter is they can't validate what you're saying, but it just sounds good. It makes them feel good. So for the men that say Kevin Samuels is rallying for us, Kevin Samuels is right now, he's the man of the hour. So we're going to promote him regardless. Okay, yeah, I hear you. I got you. But for the women that sit down and hang off of every word saying that you can't be this size, you can't be this color, you can't have this job, you can't have this much money. Like I'm telling you right now, if a man wants you, I don't give a shit if you work at the zoo, McDonald's, a school bus driver. If a man wants you, it don't matter how much money you make. It really don't matter how you look. If he wants you, if he values who you are, he's going to appreciate, applaud, and he's going to scoop you up. You see what I'm saying? So don't let Kevin Samuels deter you or distract you. I would tell you to keep on challenging yourself, but everybody's high value, everybody's method of success or what they think success is not everybody's success. Some people live in the woods in a cabin and they living their best life. They don't have to have a downtown condominium. So don't get discouraged because a man tells you you need to be in a three-piece suit or you need to be a size 4 to be sexy or attractive.
You know, I agree with that because you got some people that are living under the bridge that are happy.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's not a joke. That's truth. Like I've been
Yeah,
called
that's
out
true.
to do crisis work for people that, you know, are seemingly psychotic because they hear voices, you know, and things like that, and they think that their home is right behind a McDonald's and it's a trash can, but they think that this house exists and they're in different parts of it. And their reality may be skewed a little bit, but they are living the best lives of the best versions of their life in this moment. I'm not gonna lie, because I've heard some horror stories of the things they went through when they had homes, when they had families, and families sometimes were a deconditioner, a lack of support for them and where they were going. So people dissociate and become psychotic as a result of those negative experiences in life. So to be honest with you, some people don't need a whole lot to live their best life. You understand what I'm saying? Like some people don't need a whole lot, but you do need those things on an emotional level, on a connection level, on a spiritual level to help you be able to be successful in your relating to people. Because if you don't understand how positive energy and negative energy can impact your balance, right? When you talk about we need someone who is, you know, going to add value to us, right? It's about having somebody that's complementary to your energy that you're putting out into the atmosphere. So together you make greatness instead of discord. You say, okay,
You,
who's
you,
chasing high value men or women? Chasing.
you know, when I was a part of a ministry, right, I did a lot of outreach. The people who I came in contact with, who was you know, living under the bridge, who was considered to be poor, these men and women that I met, that was exceptional. They were the ones who either had PhDs, they had master degrees. I met some who were former ministers, pastors, all these different levels. Every last one of them was telling me that at first, well, when I was living my life at first, living in the house, have to pay over $1,400 a month mortgage, including electricity, and have to try to put food on the table. My life was miserable. Even though I had that life, my life was miserable. But I'm in this situation. I don't have to worry about no rent. I don't have to worry about no mortgage. I don't have to worry about food, because it's crazy. Because it's people like you who come to me and actually provide for me. You give me food and substance, and that's all I need just to sustain myself. And it kind of speaks. I know we're talking about the high value and now the culture now, and it does how it is in our culture now that we look at all these different things and we try to value that our homes and all this stuff there, but deep down inside, all of us is really struggling. This pandemic really showed that to us, how much we're struggling a lot.
Yeah.
It don't matter how value we have, we don't matter our salary or anything like that. We all struggling. We all part of a system that allowing us to struggle too. So it doesn't matter about that. At the end of the day, high value is really just a perception with the person. You could have no money in the world, but you still is high value at the end of the day.
Beauty
It doesn't
too.
matter.
I feel like beauty too. I think what's attractive for some people isn't attractive for other. Now, don't get me wrong. I feel like there are some universal beauties, right? But I feel like there are some universally attractive guys. You know, I feel like Brad Pitt, Denzel Washington for women. And
I'm mad she said Brad Pitt first. I'm about to kick her off her own show.
I'm just saying.
I'm about to kick her off her
Personally, I know I've never preferred.
I'm gonna text you later.
Look,
yeah,
I've
she's
never
gonna talk about Brad Pitt and
Pitt.
stuff. So
I prefer the guy that played Thor. What's his name? And Gerald Butler.
No, it was Michael Jackson.
No. No. I didn't even like Michael Jackson back in the day. I thought Michael Jackson was actually quite cute before he started getting all those surgeries and stuff done. And I was like,
oh, you didn't like White Mike? You know what? You acting brand new right now. You acting real brand new, sweetheart.
I'm just saying.
You acting real brand new. But go ahead. It's your show. Go ahead.
Look, I'm just saying, you know, but if I had to say like universal people that are attractive, then you got to go universal attractive is different than people that have a preference for a particular thing.
So all these men on this panel, ain't nobody attract. You named Brad Pitt and Denzel Washington, but you ain't say nothing about King, the therapist.
Y'all are not universal
attractive. And I got my picture up too. That's sad.
Y'all are.
You are something else. Let me go to Waffle House real quick. I don't need this negativity.
I'm so done. Like, y'all are not universal attractive.
Yes,
y'all
we are,
like,
ma'am. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. My birth certificate says Universal Mario.
I'm done.
And I'm a 10. I don't care what Kevin Seven say. I'm a 10.
Ladies, tell rate these guys. Tough Love ain't even got no picture in himself. What you doing?
Wait a minute. First of all, King picture is small as hell. Like, how can you? That is not even fair to rate him on that small picture.
You can blow it up. You can blow it up.
But I mean, I feel like, universal attractive is one thing. And I think that there are some specific attractions, like people have specific things they're attracted to, right? So for me as a woman, it's arms and legs. It's always been like, that's what will make me look at a guy. And then I'm going to be checking out the booty. But, for every woman, they don't care about that. A dude, he got to have abs. I don't have to have the abs. I mean, they're a nice compliment as long as they're not too hard. But you know what I'm saying? Like, I have some things that I'm willing to push to the side. Like, for example, the dude that plays Thor. He can have all
this dude to play Thor.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
You want this dude.
Yes.
You white boys. I'm mad right now. She ain't say nothing about Black Panther.
Yeah. Shout out to Black Panther.
He didn't do nothing for me. He didn't do nothing.
Still reaching out.
He didn't do anything for me. Like, I'm sorry. I just didn't, but I'm about to,
ladies and gentlemen, everybody, just time her out for 5 minutes. Time her out.
Look, that goes to
Falcon, bro.
Wait a minute. That goes to this question right here. I had to make my mentions for my show. This woman said that it's Black women's time to start dating right now. Yes, it's live.
Oh, okay. I thought these were like preordained questions, but this is live. Okay, cool. That's cool.
Yeah. So,
read your question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but the lady that submitted this topic right here, that's what she was saying. She said it's now Black women's time to stop holding them spaces for exclusive Black men. And I don't know, like for me, I identify with the Black community, but I've never held an exclusive dating thing for anybody. I've dated every culture.
Dr. J, I think we are both in the same. Listen, you are the female tough love. I'm telling you right now, because I feel like whoever you love or whoever you're interested in or whoever you want to give the opportunity to, then do it. You grown.
Right.
Live your best life. I'm telling you, I will applaud and appreciate you living your best life. I don't think it is segregated to one particular person, thing, or whatever. Whatever you want to do, you do it. Whatever make you happy.
But I also say I try to encourage women to not step outside of their race just on the energy of black men have done me wrong, because then the picture starts to look a little different. So now you're only dating the person of that other race.
But you can't be.
Back
See,
at
here's
that
the
other race.
issue with that is if you're since is this the raw element of the conversation yet?
Right.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
go
cool.
ahead, dig in.
So here's the thing: you can't be a hoe and
Right.
expect a man or a woman to respect you. If you
Exactly.
out there in them streets, regardless if you're a man or a woman, I know this don't sit well because I'm not choosing sides, but the fact of the matter is, if you are not trustworthy, then don't expect trust. If you do not provide loyalty, then don't expect loyalty. The fact of the matter is, people want to do people dirty. They want to be out there buck wild, and they expect people to just allow them to do whatever they want to do. So what happens is, when a certain race or gender do not allow, applaud, or appreciate or tolerate what it is that you do, you tend to run to another gender or race because you feel like they will be more tolerable of the actions that you do. Y'all talk to me. Y'all the therapist. I'm just here.
You know what? I'm gonna say what y'all supposed to say in this topic, all right, this conversation, this segment. I am I am 100% with y'all on love is love. You should love whoever. But I'm gonna keep it real. I'm attracted to my sister. It is what it is. I love my sisters, regardless of if they did wrong to me, whatever. I just love my sister. I just have a certain attraction for them. Period. It is what it is, and that's how it is in other cultures as well. Other cultures they may try to step out and date other races, but at the end of the day, they're more attracted to the race that they're prevalent with. Period. You know.
I wouldn't say they're more attracted to what's around them. What happens is people are exposed to more things, more different variations of people, more cultures, food wise, more cultures, tradition wise, and all of that. And some of these things help gravitate them outside of the context of their own personal culture. And so I see that more often than not. And I don't get from, because I'm Finnish American, I don't get from Finnish people that, oh, well, you know what? I want to go and get me an American. That's not to say we don't have certain discussions around going to America and doing specific things in America that I won't mention. However, Americans aren't goals, right? Asian people are sometimes attractive because they come and they oftentimes frequent our area quite often. Irish people do too. People that are from the UK in England, because we're Northern English. We see people who are interesting to us. African people are interesting to us. A lot of people are interesting to us. That doesn't mean that we don't love Finnish people or that we love Finnish people primarily. It just means that we are attracted to what we are exposed to when the attraction is there. Like I said, I think the vast majority of my friends, we're looking for certain things. So like I said, I'm an arms and legs kind of person. Some of my friends are really deep into abs. I mean, to the whole, they're like, no, he can't have a 6-pack. He need to have a 9-pack. I'm like, what is that? Like, you know what I mean? What does that look like? And they can draw it out. And they literally are attracted to that physique, regardless of what skin tone, because we don't see, skin tone is not an indicator for us. Culture is, right? So Italian men, French men, you know what I'm saying? American people, you are all in one group for us. I know that in America, everything is divided. And I was so excited about it to go back home and talk about that. I was like, no, they're not all the same. No, it's not what we thought it was. They have black ones and they have white ones. White ones, what did that look like? Black ones, what did that look like? You know what I mean?
So
separate
Dr. J. So Dr. J, what I'm hearing is that you don't want the fit bod, you want the dad bod.
I don't want the thick bod. Is that what you said?
You don't want the fit bod, you want the dad bod.
No, because the fit bod is in, sometimes I just don't have a preference for what all of that look like. You know what I'm saying? I have a preference for the things I like. That's it. If all of that comes with it, the six pack comes with it. If it don't, then it don't. You know what I mean? As long as the elements that are giving me a primary attraction to the person are there, that's all that matters.
So let me clarify. You want the urban therapist and the Mario J, but the Thor is just a little fantasy, but not reality.
Thor is too young, but if I was about 20 years younger, that would be goals. Okay. Look, I'm pushing my daughters that way. I'm like, you know what? Go ahead. He available. But no, like, we have a different taste. Like for my girls, they don't care anything about bod at all. And I don't see how they don't. Because when I was in my 20s, 30s, you know what I mean? That was everything for me. I love to look at a man's bod, like everything. But for them, they're all about intellect. They want a man that's intelligent. That's it. I was like, I was definitely not thinking about that then. Like, I mean, having a conversation was important, but I need to be able to look at you, and I need to look at your father and your grandfather to know that you're going to age well. Like for me, that was really important at that stage. That's why the arms and the legs mean something, because they say something about the way you're going to age. I would break that down, but it would take too long. But that's why those things mean a lot to me. Also, another thing is like dimples, huge for that. Strength, those are like huge things. And then intellect and all that stuff comes next, because typically after you're done looking at them, you're going to have a conversation. And if their conversation is right and you're ready to be vetted, you're going to receive them properly. You can move into the vetting stages and courting stages and things like that. But mostly I've been unavailable the vast majority of my life. So it is what it is. But I don't see, Denzel would probably be the black guy that I was attracted to back in the day. And even now, I think he's aged fairly well. Yeah. But so I feel like when Black women make their intention to date outside of the Black community, because they've been done by Black men, I feel like that's when it becomes something that's more spiteful than dating with the intention or the purpose of staying tethered to someone for the right energy. And that's why I say I caution women against that component, because I feel like sometimes they're not realistic in their end game. Also, very much like Mario was saying, if you're a hoe, if you're out here, and what did my client call it? Hotivity. You have a high level of hotivity. You can't expect for somebody to respect you or receive you or even be interested in dating you. So Jerry says, I'm mixed with 4 different races. Who should I date or marry? I know, that's what I feel
4
too.
different races? The 4 different races that you mix with?
All 4. You got lots of options out here in these streets. Yes.
Oh, yeah, Dr. J, since we get ready to wrap up pretty soon.
Mm-hmm.
And we was talking earlier about effective communication. Now, what advice will we give to everyone, or what techniques could we share with people to establish effective communication?
So for effective communication, during conflictual situations where you feel reactive emotionally because people have triggered you, either because they've shared a truth that you were not ready to share with the rest of the world or your immediate space, or because they are offensive in the things or disrespectful in the way that they're coming at you, I always say find meaningful ways to express to them that you feel like you're not having a full opportunity to hear them, right? So not that you're not feeling heard, because when we become hostile, it's because we're not being heard. But say, you know what? I'm trying really hard to concentrate right now, and I'm having a really hard time focusing. So how about we come back to this at another time? Give me a time that works for you. and give it to them, because at the end of the day, you're the person that's the voice of reasoning in that situation right now. So they are not, and they're not going to be able to de-escalate if you're coming at them demanding a particular time later. They're always going to be unavailable. And so if that person is going to give you a time, take that time, be intentional, go back to it after you de-escalated yourself and you cool down, deep breathing techniques, muscle tension, release, hold your fist for 5 seconds and release about a good 15 reps, and then come back to the conversation at the intended time and only be in the listener position, because you were the first person to cool down or recognize that things got out of control. If they decide to tell you in that moment, you know what, I'm not available at all, you can just say, well, okay, well, feel free to email me, text me, and when you're ready, and then we'll come back to it. And I'll be willing. So be willing to come back to the conversation. Be intentional about coming back to the conversation, and be respectful in coming back to the conversation. Seat yourself in the listener position so that you can give them what you're receiving from them, and model the behavior that you would like to see in them. So I always say, listen to people that say, be the change that you would like to see in the community around you. Literally, that's what you have to do. So after they see you modeling that behavior, they can shift gears and they can now listen to you, because they're in a different state of mind. They're not hostile anymore. You can convey to them, oh, I can see how you would feel that way. That gives them validity. They feel heard now. So that takes it all the way down from a 5, where they cool down a little bit, to a 0. And so now they can hear your message. Now you become the speaker, and the same thing, same sentiments of their feedback loop are repeated in conversation. What I hear you saying is XYZ. Did I get that right? Then that person can say, no, what I said was BXY. Oh, okay. So now what I hear you saying, once I feel corrected, was BXY. Did I get that right? And that person can say, yeah. Okay, so I can see how you would feel that way. Is there anything you want me to do with that? Like, for example, when a person's telling you, I'm getting tired of you leaving these dishes in the sink, right? Expecting me to clean up after you, like you're a whole grown person. That argument happens a lot, especially with new couples. And so they're saying, no, what I hear you saying is that you're not a maid. No. What I'm saying is, I'm tired of you leaving the dishes in the sink with the intentions that I'm going to come back behind you and clean up your mess. So then the other person can say, okay, what I now hear you saying after you've corrected me is maybe that you're tired of me leaving dirty dishes in the sink. Is there, and expecting you to come and clean it up. So what part of that, once they say, yeah, that's what I said, what part of that do you want me to do something about, right? So that person can now convey to you, as a result of you receiving me, I would like for you to rinse your dish out before you place it in the sink to be washed at a later time or put in the dishwasher. Or they could say, I want your ass to wash your dishes when you're done eating, sir. You ain't got no maids. You understand? And then now, as a result of you understanding what their expectation is, you can let them know whether or not you can meet them fully or partially in that expectation, and what that will look like. Now you guys can negotiate on more level terms. You understand what I'm saying? So what I say is that be respectful by way of asking people what they would like for you to do, how they would like for you to address them. Don't make it up in your mind that just because you walk with this particular energy, another person has to. Because people they want to be treated the way they want to be treated, not the way you want to be treated. That doesn't equate to respect. Because you might have a lower level of tolerance or a higher level of tolerance for BS than they do in comparison. So it's really important to understand what other people's boundaries are and what their expectations are, because yours and theirs may not be in alignment. Also, when you say that men are disrespectful women in the way that they approach dating outside of their race, look within yourself and tell me what it is that you see when they're being disrespectful by dating outside of their race, before you go and say, okay, well, you don't respect yourself. You ain't got no respect for your race and all of these things. Don't judge them. Don't be so quick to judge. Be curious. also in conversations where you feel like people are disrespecting you, sometimes you got to give them a chance to finish saying what they want to say, because they're not there to listen to you yet. And sometimes, especially when we're on these panels, it's very important to do that, because it's a lot of people who have very poor communication skills. And until their point is made, there are lots of rules, right? But after their point is made, they don't care about the rules. Everybody can interrupt. You understand what I'm saying? So it's really important to see what type of person that you're communicating with. And when a person is making a point or they make a pause, interject as necessary to correct, but continue the conversation moving forward respectfully by way of saying, hey, did you want to finish that thought, or are you done yet? And don't be condescending when you say, are you done
yet? Yeah, absolutely.
I do that a lot.
And another point I made earlier when we was discussing this is that you have to practice listening for understanding, and not trying to listen to try to react and respond, especially if you feel that you're being verbally attacked or verbally abused. You have to understand what's going on, and that way you'll be able to communicate appropriately. But I do have another question too. That's a follow-up question too. Let's say that there's no resolution after the communication. How do one handle that if there's no resolution whatsoever?
So the thing is, when you're listening to understand, you're not looking for a resolution. That's the other part. Remember, I asked.
Absolutely.
One of the questions was, would you like for me to do something with that? Right? So just because you're communicating, in conflictual situation, is about understanding, and that's it. So it's not about doing anything at all. It's about only giving people space so that they can feel valid in the way that they sit on the issues they sit with a particular opinion on, whether you agree or disagree. It's about understanding their position, and that's it. So it's not necessarily about coming to a resolution, because some things you will not be able to resolve because you will never agree on anything. And a lot of people make the comment, oh, well, let's just agree to disagree. That's a way of saying, oh, excuse me, screw you. There's no way what you're saying has validity. You're not going to believe.
Yeah, being very condescending too.
Right. And so walking away and being disrespectful from the conversation altogether. And that's just not it. It's okay to agree that you guys have different perspectives on the same situation because you're different people. As a result, you can't come to a consensus. That's not agreeing to disagree. That's agreeing to both agree that your position holds validity for each one of you individually, but not collectively. Those are two different things. So you walk away with understanding that person's point of view and where they came into the conversation, how they came into the conversation with that perception, what shapes their perception that leads to that purview. And as a result, you just respect that. Right? So it's about, I'm giving validity to the way that you feel or the way that my actions may have impacted you, taking accountability for that component, but I'm not responsible for whatever your feelings are. I'm sitting with them. Right? But you're not holding me responsible for them because those are your things, not mine. So, that's what I have. Do you guys have anything else to add, Mario, King?
I was waiting on Mario. Is he still on the panel?
Mario is on the phone somewhere flirting with some woman. Sad. I want all of you to go over to Tough Love's podcast and give him some tough love for being distracted by the beautiful women around him. Immediately. But no, thanks so much for the people in the chat. Like, you guys are amazing. Great conversation as usual. And appreciate the comment at the end, Trey. I think that you guys have to, especially on social media, it's a lot of people watching, as Black men, right? Because the question came up in this discussion, are Black men more hostile than white men? I think that the Black community has got to stop the comparison on the social scale so that we can better ourselves from inside. based on the way that we see ourselves. And so that doesn't mean that we need to model the behavior of other cultures. It means that we need to adopt new practices that say that we value ourselves in a different way, in a different light. And as a result, we adopt different practices in the way that we deal with one another. We respect one another, and that's it. You understand? So I don't think that one race of people, subculture of people, can be any more aggressive in general, because people are people. So there are individuals. Black people are not one group collectively. We're all individuals. Whether you identify or don't identify. I think someone asked about the level up projection or pushing leveling up. I'm a person that pushes for education, insight, and elevation of people every single day, for the purpose of the betterment of the community, by far and large. So not just Black people, but collective American people, so that there is a more sound sense of self out there that presents when you deal with other people from other cultures, because you have no idea what that looks like on the outside. I'm just saying. So as always, I love you guys. If you've not already subscribed and you're a first-time viewer, go back, and you saw this on the end, go back to the beginning and watch the content from the beginning and let me know what your thoughts and reflections are on the different conversation talking points that we presented. I want to thank the person who gave the suggestion for this discussion about Black men dating white women, but Black women continuing to hold that space and feeling like it's high time that Black women started to date or see people outside of their race, just because of the frustration with that component. I think that allowed for us to have a very good conversation around that topic, but also to all of the people that submitted different questions that we were able to address within the context of this same segment. So thank you guys for participating and interacting and all that good stuff. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the content. I am building my platform on YouTube, and I need those 500 subscribers. It's just a small goal. All right. So later days.
Who alive can't put me in a box. I redefine any definition you got. I am the tiger, I'm making steps to the top. The flames that whip it up, you just gotta hand me the rock. Take a seat, you cannot stand it. All I know, the flow harder than a Scotch bunny. Don't try it better than me, you cannot manage. This ain't what you want, bitch, I'm a fucking phenomenon. This ain't what you want, bitch, I'm a fucking phenomenon.